Welcome to your AEW All Out, All In, All Out, All In. I don't know. I get them confused all the time. It says literally on the screen right there, All In. You'll have to excuse me. I'm going on 3 hours of sleep. I just got back from Texas myself, and I thought about staying for the pay-per-view today. But I said, with all of the shows that we have this weekend, I better get my ass back here to home base so I can cover everything. And I may live to regret that decision, but I said, you know what? It'll be better if I watch it here. And I will say, I had some feelings of some FOMO going on, wishing that I was at Globe Life Field because I knew this was going to be a big show. This was AEW's biggest show of the year. It was all built around Jon Moxley in the main event, defending the AEW World Championship against Hangman in a Texas death match. And coming into this show, there was a lot of talk about whether or not Tony Khan was actually going to pull the trigger and take that championship off of Jon Moxley, if he was going to wait and have Darby Allin be the one to take the title off of him because of that story that's been building for months with Moxley and Darby. And maybe they're just going to hold off a little bit longer, and that would have been awful. Because there was one story to be told tonight, and that story involved Hangman Adam Page. The character arc for Hangman, all of it, everything with Swerve, everything that this man has done, the heel turn, him becoming psychotic and unhinged. And then in recent weeks, we've seen this change in his demeanor and his personality where he's actually looking back and having regret for things that he did. This entire story was all built around Hangman. Hangman had to come in tonight and do what nobody else has been able to do since last year. And that was put the final nail in the coffin of the Death Riders and take back the championship. Anything else would have been an epic failure. And I watched the segment from Collision on Thursday with Hangman and Swerve. And it was a few minutes long, not even in the arena in the middle of the ring. It was in the back. It was a backstage segment where you had Swerve and Hangman sitting there. And honestly, that will go down to me as one of the greatest segments all year on AEW television. I loved what they did with Swerve and Hangman on Thursday, and it telegraphed what we saw here at the end of this main event tonight. Been saying it for the longest time. This is going to be the Avengers Endgame for AEW as far as main events. This is going to be their version, in effect, of what WWE did with the Bloodline when Roman finally lost the championship at WrestleMania last year. And you have all of these different people getting involved and all shenanigans of all different types and people getting involved in cameo appearances. That is what we are going to get in the main event tonight. Been saying that now for weeks. That's the way it should go down. Darby Allin, he's going to be in the Gauntlet match. He's going to win the Gauntlet and then he's going to cash in. And I hear people saying this and I'm like, do you honestly believe, if you just stop for a moment and you honestly believe in your mind, in your heart of hearts, that the best idea would have been to have Darby Allin as a babyface, cash in, quote unquote, on a spent Jon Moxley after a main event to steal the championship away from him, and that's how you end that story after all these many months? That would have been horrible. That would have been terrible. So many different ideas that people had for this match. At the end of the day, it was the simplest one of all that made sense. And that's the one that Tony Khan went with. The nightmare is over. Jon Moxley's reign as the AEW World Heavyweight Champion has come to an end. Wrestling gods, they have answered all of our prayers. And look, you have stories that go on for months on end. You're going to have people saying, we'll see. This is the payoff. This is why you had to be patient, and this is why you had to wait. It was never a matter of are we going to get the payoff, right? At some point, Jon Moxley was going to lose the championship. That goes without saying. But we had to sit through months of terrible Death Rider segments and terrible conclusions to many of their pay-per-view main events. It just wasn't fun. So the sooner they were able to put the nail in the coffin and move on beyond this, the better off we would all be. That's why it's like prolonging a slow death, right? That's not what I was looking for. And so tonight, when the show was over, we had the image of Hangman Adam Page, the cowboy, riding into Texas, leaving with the championship. I love the little touch when he finally pulled the title out of the briefcase And if you'll notice, the Bryan Danielson side plates were still on the belt because that belt was shoved in that briefcase in October when he beat Danielson to win the belt. It still had his side plates on there. But it was nice to actually get a view of the championship because we legitimately have not seen this title since the fall of last year. But we had Will Ospreay getting involved. And we had Darby Allin. Even though I do think that the Darby Allin stuff that they did here was a little underwhelming, the way it came off. We got a quick cameo from Bryan Danielson. I love it because Danielson was talking, he was at StarCast, I think, this week. And he was talking about how he had heard from WWE recently, basically saying to him, we don't want you doing the yes stuff anymore. You know, that's our IP. We don't want you doing that anymore. So if he's telling the truth, he comes out tonight. What is the first thing he does? He puts his fucking fingers in the air. And of course, everybody starts chanting yes. And he delivers a Busaiku knee and he's going, yes, yes, yes. So I got a nice little laugh out of that. So we got a cameo from him. Obviously the Young Bucks got involved. The Death Riders got involved. There was tons of blood and gore and violence in this match. The minute they announced that this was going to be a Texas death match, you knew what kind of match you were going to get. You can't be shocked. You can't be like, oh my God, I can't believe we had a bed of nails. I can't believe that Moxley had a fork jabbed into his forehead and he was bleeding like a pig all over the place. Of course he was. It's Jon Moxley in the main event of their biggest show of the year, Texas Death. What did you expect? Did you think you were going to get a fucking test of strength from these two men? It might not be your cup of tea. Me personally, I'm not really heavy into the deathmatch stuff that he does either. I think, frankly, in AEW, there's an over-reliance on that kind of stuff. I think you save it for special occasions. But you knew going in, okay, this is going to be a violent affair. This is going to be what Swerve and Hangman was in the last two matches that they had, right? They had a Texas death match. They had a cage match. They did some sick shit in that match. So we got a lot of that in the main event. Blood was spilled. Blood will be left in Texas, but they did the right thing. Hangman Page is the champion. Now, the other thing involved the AEW Women's World Championship. Mercedes Mone coming into this show tonight, trying to leave Texas as Mercedes 7 belts. Timeless Toni Storm, Mercedes Mone, first time ever, big match. The biggest possible match that AEW could have done, which is why Tony Khan obviously wanted to do it on this show. They had the opportunity leading into this show to take the TBS title off of Mercedes. They did not do so. And I said that I think it would be a huge mistake for her to roll into this show, stay undefeated, beat Toni Storm, and just hold all the titles. Because where do you go from there, right? What do you do next? What then? What becomes of the TBS championship? What direction do you possibly go in if she just wins again and collects all the titles? There's nothing left for her to do at that point. And there's been a lot of talk, there's been stories all week long and a lot of bullshit going on back and forth about this and her contract and creative control and all this other nonsense. I don't give a shit. At the end of the day, you have two women here going into the ring tonight having what, for my money, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but for my money, was the greatest women's wrestling match that AEW has ever put on. Toni Storm went out there, by the way, at Revolution earlier this year, and had an all-timer of a hardcore match with Mariah May when they had that Hollywood ending, which was the perfect blow-off to that feud. It was short, it was violent, it was bloody. It was very much like the main event that we had tonight. But it was more of like a street fight type of match. Bell to bell, as far as women's pro wrestling match here in AEW, I don't think it gets any better than what we had tonight between Toni and Mercedes. They went out there, they had an excellent match, and Toni Storm hands Mercedes Mone her first singles loss in an AEW ring. When I did my predictions on the Sound Off this past weekend, I went with Toni Storm. Some people said you're nuts, because I thought Mercedes would have lost by now. So I, ended up looking like a fool before. And they're like, well, you're going to look like a fool again after the show. But I stuck with Toni. I stuck with Hangman. I was wrong about the Bucks winning, and I was wrong about Omega winning. But those two, I said, if he plays his cards right and does the right thing, Toni is going to retain, Hangman is going to win. When this night was over, that's exactly what happened. In fact, we had 3 main events on this show. The other one being winner takes all for the International and Continental title, which were being merged together to form the first ever AEW Unified Championship. Kazuchika Okada, Kenny Omega, Part 5. First time that we've had this match on American soil. They had some lofty expectations going into this match. And as somebody who has seen all of their previous singles matches together, I was trying to temper my expectations, right? It's been many years since they have stepped in the ring against each other. Kenny is coming off some health issues, obviously, over the past year and a half. And you just don't know what you're going to get after, so many years. Are they going to be able to live up to the standard of match, that people associate with them having back in their days in New Japan? They went out there tonight and they had what I would say was the weakest of all the matches that they've had together. And even the weakest Kenny Omega Kazuchika Okada match is still a very good match. All three main events delivered on this show: the women's match, unified title match, and the main event. They gave you exactly what you needed to see. And there were some other really good things on the show as well. Now, not everything was great, but on the whole, as I look back here at this All In show, what we got on the whole was an excellent show. We also had the return of Adam Copeland coming to the aid of his former tag partner, his former best friend, Christian Cage. So things are in motion right now for the inevitable reunion between the two of them. Go slow with it. There's no reason to rush it. You've got a big show coming up in Toronto in a couple of months. You've got 2 full months now to build a story around these two men coming back together to take on FTR. Because the pieces are falling into place, as we saw based on what happened here on this pay-per-view tonight. There was also a bit of a downer on this show, because earlier today we found out, very late in the day, that Adam Cole was not medically cleared to defend his TNT championship on this show. And we have no details now. At the moment, there's probably a post-show press scrum going on. I'm sure somebody will ask Tony Khan about this. I don't know that he'll say anything more than what he's already said on Twitter. He tends to keep this stuff very close to the vest. When it comes to medical stuff, it's possible Adam Cole only wants to share what he wants to share. And if so, that's his prerogative. So we don't know the specifics, but we know that he's hurt enough that he had to vacate the TNT championship. He was not cleared to wrestle tonight. He came out on the show and cut what may well end up being a retirement speech. That's how serious the situation sounds. And you could see, just wearing the emotion on his face, it was very sad, to see him out there, because he has been through a lot when it comes to injuries, when it comes to overcoming just various medical issues that he's had to deal with over these last, I'd say, 3 years, going back to that really bad concussion that he suffered at Forbidden Door back in 2022, I believe it was. So he's been through the ringer, absolutely. I don't know what his future holds, and I'll get into exactly what he said, but that was the saddest part of the entire show. I'm glad he had the chance to go out there at least and address what ended up being a pretty sizable crowd here for AEW on this show. Per PW Insider, it was north of 27,000 people in the building. Fans, I assume that doesn't include workers, but north of 27,000 in Globe Life Field in Arlington. Over $3 million gate, which is their biggest for a U.S. show in the history of the company. So by all measures, this show was a rousing success for Tony Khan and for AEW. And when it comes to the matches, because there were a lot of them on this show, this was a long show. And if you watch these AEW pay-per-views, you already know how long these shows could be. This had to be the longest that they've ever done. This show was in the range of nearly 6 hours, not counting the 0 hour, which is more than... They should start calling it 0 hours, because it's not even an hour. If you want to include the pre-show, you're probably looking at something closer to 7.5 hours. It was a long show, but you also have to understand something here. This is All In. This is their WrestleMania. And before WWE decided to do 2-night WrestleManias, what were they doing? They were doing these bloated 6 and 7 hour WrestleMania shows. I know this because I was at many of those shows. I was out in the hot Florida sun, sitting there when The Undertaker was disrobing, not in that way, but he was disrobing at 12:15 in the morning, teasing that he might just have wrestled his last match against Roman Reigns. And I said, I cannot believe that I have been sitting here for 7 hours. Something has to change here. So thankfully, they've gone to the 2-night format for WrestleMania. I'm not saying that AEW, has to go 2 nights for All In. But again, this being their biggest show of the year, you knew that they were going to shove as much as they could into those 6 hours. And for what we got, they made the most of it. Again, an excellent show with the happy ending that I think most people were hoping for. Maybe not expecting. Maybe they weren't fully expecting Tony Khan to actually go ahead and do it, but I'm glad he did. And now it feels in many ways like a reset for AEW. It feels like a reset where when we hit Dynamite on Wednesday, we turn the page on multiple stories. We turn the page on multiple title reigns, and we move forward with, for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, a new direction, heading into what is effectively going to be a new year now for AEW. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they have in mind. But maybe the thing that, I don't know if impressed is the right word, but the thing that I was happiest to see when it comes to that main event, even just as much, frankly, as him winning the championship, was that moment in the main event where Swerve Strickland came out and he had a chain. He took out the Young Bucks with it, and he locked eyes with Hangman, and he slid the chain into the ring to help his most hated rival in his career. It all ties back to that segment on Collision on Thursday, which was very well done. That storytelling aspect is what makes it work so well. And why I've enjoyed what they've done over the past 2 years with Hangman and Swerve. I mean, their story, their feud, their hatred for one another has been incredible to follow. And so as much as a payoff as it was to see him win the championship, the real payoff was that moment there between the two of them. And funny enough, because Swerve is not banned from competing for the championship for the next year, we could very well be on our way soon enough to another match, this time for the championship between Hangman and Swerve. But we'll get into that and everything else that happened here on this show. This is your AEW All In Texas 2025 review. I am the Solomonster. Thank you guys for hanging out with me on what I know is a very busy Saturday night, a very busy weekend of pro wrestling. I myself just got in earlier this morning from Texas. I was in Texas, not far from Globe Life Field, probably a 20-minute drive last night for the House of Glory show. And given everything going on this weekend, I wanted to get back here as quickly as possible. So I have been up since probably about 3:30 this morning. I think I may have gotten 3 hours of sleep. So on 3 hours of sleep, coming home and watching 6 hours of AEW, I was a little worried if I was going to make it through the show. Thankfully, they gave me enough good stuff that it kind of woke me up. So I'm in a pretty lively mood as compared to what I was a little fearful of there. But subscribe, hit that like button if you have not already done so. Help us get to our goal for this evening. Super chats are open. You will see them popping up on your screen. And I will be reading whatever messages come in. We'll hang out a little bit later and go through all of that. Also, just be aware, because this weekend, as I said, is going to be a very busy weekend. We have another pay-per-view, PLE, call it whatever you want, tomorrow night. With a tear in my eye. Tomorrow night, Evolution is going to cap off the weekend. I'll be live on YouTube again Sunday night talking Evolution when that show is over. And of course, episode 920 of the podcast will be dropping at some point tomorrow afternoon as well. So you got a lot of content coming your way. Please go ahead and support. So I know it's not all for nothing. I met a lot of really cool people this weekend, by the way. That really made my night, I have to say. Friday night, a lot of you guys, some people from the channel who may be in the chat as we speak, who have probably never been to an HOG show before, but I've never had the chance to meet them in person. And so many people came up to me. I got to chat with you guys and take pictures and hang out for a little bit. So I just want to say thank you for that. That made my night. Let's get into the pre-show here. We'll start with this. The 0 hour, or as I said, 0 hours. We had 3 matches on this pre-show before we even got into the main card. We had the Sons of Texas, which was Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, who I believe are still the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, They pulled double duty on this show. So they teamed up with the Von Erichs, Ross and Marshall Von Erich, to beat Shane Taylor Promotions. Kevin Von Erich got a cameo. It's only appropriate here in Texas. He even got to put the claw. He put the claw on Anthony Ogogo here. Then we had what I'm sure was the match that many of you have been waiting for weeks to see. Big Boom AJ was back from the Costco guys. He was part of a tag match. It was Big Boom AJ. It was Hologram. It was Kyle O'Reilly and Tomohiro Ishii beating Lance Archer, Hechicero, Trent Beretta, and Rocky Romero, representing the Don Callis family. Beretta, at one point during the match, went over to Big Justice, 13-year-old Big Justice, sitting at ringside with the Rizzler. And he went over to Big Justice, who stood up to him. Actually, he stood up to Rocky Romero. Beretta comes over. He pie faces the 13-year-old down to the ground, which got him mega heat here at Globe Life Field. And so later on in the match, Big Justice gets into the ring, and this 13-year-old boy delivers a spear to Trent Beretta. It is as ridiculous as it sounds, although no more ridiculous than the sight of the Rizzler sitting there at ringside with a cowboy hat on his head. Big Boom AJ won it for his team with the power boom to Rocky Romero. The people seemed to enjoy it. It was what it was. And then FTR wrestling on the pre-show because they had other ideas in mind for them, storyline-wise, on the main card. They were going to be doing commentary for the Tag Team Championship match. But they were on the pre-show here, taking on the Outrunners in a match that was not as good as the match they had on Collision last week. I heard a lot of really good things about that match, so I had to go back and watch it. And it was very good. This was a few notches below that. Still a good match. The Outrunners hit Total Recall. Stokely Hathaway, though, broke up the pin attempt. And Dax Harwood won it via shenanigans with a roll-up. Had his feet on the ropes. Wheeler and Hathaway were holding his feet. They were doing everything possible to make sure they secured the win here, which they did. All of this unbeknownst to the referee. Not a great night to be a referee in AEW. There were quite a few referees who were made to look like absolute geeks here on this show. But it also, the way they did that finish, it does leave it open for them to do more, even though Stokely later in the show said that their business with the Outrunners now is done. It may be done for now, but they've left it open to do more in the future. So that was the pre-show. Then we get into this very long main card here, which opened with Machine Head, which I guess has sort of become the official theme song for AEW All In. We had the Death Riders. Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, and Gabe Kidd out through the crowd to challenge for the Trios Championships against the Opps, Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Katsuyori Shibata. Hobbs turned into a pop-up uppercut that he didn't see coming from Claudio late in the match. Claudio got the big man up on his shoulders for a Doomsday Device. This was like the big spot of the match here. So he gets Hobbs on his shoulders for this Doomsday Device. Wheeler Yuta is on top. He comes diving off, and Hobbs catches him out of midair and turns it into a power slam on the way down. There was a giant swing on Hobbs outside into the barricade. Back inside, Yuta skinned the cat into a snap German on Shibata for 2. Gabe Kidd tagged in just as Shibata hulked up, and he kicked out of a brainbuster at 1. Then there was a headbutt that collapsed Shibata. I don't know why Shibata is still taking headbutts. I just find that to be completely ridiculous. But Joe made the tag. He went on to win it for the Opps after a muscle buster to Wheeler Yuta. So they retained the Trios titles. They won the battle. They didn't quite win the war tonight, though, because when the match was over, the Death Riders attacked them. Kidd hit a pile driver on Shibata. Claudio at the same time hit a neutralizer on Joe. Yuta was wearing out Hobbs with a chair outside the ring. Claudio takes a chair, and he wraps it around Samoa Joe's neck. And he rears back, and he stomps on it. So he Pillmanizes the neck. And Joe was out cold. He looked like he was dead. Medics and officials came into the ring. They had to load him onto a backboard. He had to be stretchered out. They treated this like a big injury angle. No doubt to illustrate the fact that Hangman was down essentially one comrade going into the main event. If he was relying on the Opps or Samoa Joe specifically for any assistance against the Death Riders, he was no longer going to be able to count on their help after this angle. This was not the blowaway opener that I thought maybe they would open the show with. I figure a match like this, which was added very late, would have been used later in the card, maybe as sort of a cushion between a couple of other big matches. Obviously, they wanted it here so they could do the injury angle and kind of get that out of the way. So the question now is, how long is Joe going to be out for? And are they going to bring back Hook in his place until Joe comes back? Where does Hook factor into all this? Because he was a non-factor here. He wasn't even on the show. So we'll see how long they actually keep Joe out for, because Will Ospreay suffered the same fate in the main event when he came out to help, and I don't see them keeping Ospreay out for very long. So if you're going to have Ospreay back on TV in, let's say, a week or two, I don't see how you can keep Samoa Joe out for longer than that. Up next was the men's Casino Gauntlet match. This was a very important match because the winner of this match would receive a future shot at the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Mark Briscoe, MJF, numbers 1 and 2 respectively, they kicked off the match. MJF came out flanked by MVP. I do have to mention this when it comes to Mark Briscoe. There is a video from the Players Tribune. I think it's up right now on the AEW YouTube channel. And it's sort of a brief documentary about Mark Briscoe and the Briscoe family, and they interview his parents. You know, Papa Briscoe is interviewed, and Jay's kids. A lot of it has to do with the loss of Jay Briscoe and, you know, the accident, the recovery that his daughters had to go through, because they were very badly hurt in that accident. They're lucky to be alive. So it was sort of an update on how they're doing and just how the family in general is kind of coping and doing. Not even a full 2 years after that all went down. It's an emotional thing, especially if you were a Jay Briscoe fan, to sort of relive all of that again. And it was just so senseless and just a very sad situation. But it's a very well done documentary. And I believe it's on their YouTube channel. If you have not seen it, they were talking, I know, a lot about it on the pre-show. It's worth going out of your way. Take a few minutes and go check that out. Ricochet was out at number 3, and he very quickly forged an alliance with MJF as the two of them shook hands and they ganged up on Briscoe. Bandito, the Ring of Honor World Champion, he was out at number 4. I heard some great things about the match that he had with Takeshita last night. Obviously, I was a little preoccupied, so I was not able to watch the match. But I may have to go back and check it out based on some of the things that you guys have told me about this match. Then again, if you were to tell me that Bandito and Takeshita were going to have a match, especially in the main event of a pay-per-view, how could it be anything other than fucking great? I'm sure it was awesome. And wouldn't you know, guess who came out at number 5? Takeshita. Konosuke Takeshita was out at number 5. Hey, you know what? They say it's the luck of the draw. It's like that one year, what was it, 89? When Demolition Axe and then Demolition Smash happened to come out at number 1 and 2. It's totally random, though. The luck of the draw. Very quickly got a near fall on Ricochet, did Takeshita, with a Blue Thunder Bomb. And then it was back to Bandito and Takeshita. 24 hours later, they were going at it again. Bandito caught him with a Poison Rana, but then he got wiped out from behind by MJF. MJF then threatened to remove Bandito's mask. Same thing that he did to Mistico at Arena Mexico a few weeks ago. And wouldn't you know who came out next here in this gauntlet match? Who came out next at number 6? Why, it was Mistico. Now, Mistico came out to the same music that he entered to at Arena Mexico on that Grand Slam show. His entrance on that show was the best, and it was a very good show, but his entrance on that show was the best part of the entire show. Like, the entire crowd, they knew the song, because that was his song for many, many years, and it's a popular song. I don't know how popular it is here, but people know that song, and so you see all the people in the audience at Arena Mexico, right? They're singing the song, and they're swaying back and forth, and it was just this great entrance, right? It was this great presentation. So I don't know what Tony Khan paid for the rights to that song. I'm sure he didn't pay what he paid for Bryan Danielson's music, but he got the music, and they clearly wanted to let it play out into the chorus, even though Mistico got to the ring, and they really should have terminated the music right then and there, but they had to milk it, and they waited, and the crowd just never got into it. They just never responded to it and started singing along, I think, in the way that they intended to. But that was what they were going for anyway. But he got La Mystica on MJF, who was on the verge of tapping out, when Mark Briscoe slid back in to stop him from tapping. And then Briscoe decided to join in on the armbar. So we had a double submission until Takeshita broke things up. Josh Alexander, another member of the Callis family, he entered here at number 7. Anthony Bowens was number 8. Remember, the rules of this match are that the match can end at any moment. It is one fall to a finish. The earlier you enter the gauntlet, the better off your chances of winning. And there is no set number. So it just keeps going basically until somebody gets a pinfall or a submission. So Bowens was number 8. At one point, he crotch chopped Takeshita and Alexander, and very loudly, so we could all hear, told them to suck his fucking dick. That's what he said. These two men, in fact, did not suck his dick, just for the record. Roderick Strong was out at number 9, representing Paragon, which is now down a man. He got an angle slam on Takeshita, but Alexander bailed him out at 2. Brody King entered at number 10. And then we got our first real surprise, and honestly, what ended up being the biggest surprise of the gauntlet, coming out at number 11, which was Juice Robinson, who has not worked a match. We have not seen him on television since November of last year. He is back, a clean-shaven Juice Robinson. Now, I don't know that anybody's ever mentioned this before, but a clean-shaven Juice Robinson who bears a striking resemblance to C.J. Parker from NXT many years ago. That's what he looked like here. So he came out at number 11. Ricochet was all alone in the ring when he did. Immediately started kicking Ricochet's ass. The Gates of Agony showed up at ringside to save Ricochet because they're his new backup now. He found his new trio. So then the Guns. This was the other surprise. The Guns showed up. Austin and Colton Gunn. No music, no big entrance. The fans were making a commotion. We couldn't see who it was. And then they showed standing on top of the stage were the Guns, who we have not seen on TV since February. So they've been missing for many months as well. We haven't seen them in about 4 months. So they took it to the Gates of Agony to try to even things out. They also laid out Ricochet in the ring with their 310 to Yuma finish. And then they fought off with the Gates. We didn't see either team again. That made way for number 12, the Golden Star, Kota Ibushi. The Beast Mortos was out at number 13. He took Ibushi down straight away with a headbutt. They did a spot with Roddy trying to get his attention for a hug because it was Roddy on television who actually started the whole Frank. Started calling him Frank. Frank the lawyer, Frank the attorney. So he wanted a big hug from the Beast Mortos, and instead he got a headbutt too. Takeshita with a delayed double German suplex. This was one of the highlights of this match here. A delay. We've seen that spot before where somebody will grab onto one guy, and then there'll be somebody behind him, and he'll take him over. And so both guys go over, right, for the double German suplex. This was like a delayed double German suplex. So that got a big reaction. He did that to Ricochet and Bandito. Out at number 14, Platinum Max Caster. He didn't rap on his way to the ring, but he did have a mic and he was talking as he came down the ramp with Anthony Bowens actually laying on the ground right down at the foot of the ramp. So he taunted him as he walked by. He was doing his stupid, let's go, Max. You are the best wrestler in... What does he say? No, you're the best wrestler alive. Let's go, Max. You are the best wrestler alive, right? He's doing that stupid chant. Nobody's catching on to it. He got booted off the apron. He actually landed right on top of Bowens. Meanwhile, Briscoe caught Roddy with a J-Driller. Seemingly had the match won, but then MJF, he grabs Briscoe, throws him out of the ring, covers Roddy, steals the pin, and he steals the contract that comes with the Gauntlet win. MJF wins the men's casino gauntlet. So they went with the other Max, not Max Caster. Honestly, this was the weakest of all the men's gauntlets they've done so far. They've done a bunch of them. And I think it should be limited to All In, kind of the way they limit Anarchy in the Arena to Double or Nothing. I would tie it to this event. You have one for the men, one for the women, once a year. If you want to have a tag team gauntlet occasionally on TV, fine. But there was a period of time there where Toni was kind of going crazy with the casino gauntlet because he hit on a concept that's fun and it works. Now, look, like NXT, they'll try out new match concepts sometimes, the Iron Survivor Challenge and, stuff like that. And if it catches on and it does well, great, right? You can repeat it, but I don't need to see the Iron Survivor Challenge on TV, every 3 months. So I think tying it into All In specifically and making it exclusive to that event would make a lot of sense because these matches do tend to be a lot of fun. This was the weakest, honestly, of all the ones that they've done so far. These matches are usually a blast. This one was pretty mid as these types of matches go. Juice Robinson was the biggest surprise. Him and the Guns, that was the biggest surprise here in this match. But I'll tell you what the bigger surprise was. This match went 35 minutes. There was no reason for this to have gone 35 minutes on a show that was already going 6 hours. So that's pretty crazy. That was pretty nutty. It's not even like what did we get up to? Number 14? We didn't even get 15 people in this match. Why would this go 35 minutes? I know some people, not everybody. I know there were some people, though, who thought Darby Allin should return here or he was going to return here and he was going to win. To me, that never made any sense because if Darby was going to be on this show, which of course he was going to be, why else were they keeping him off TV since he got back from the mountain? Then it was to get involved in the main event as a surprise. I don't know why people thought that they would blow the surprise by having him in this match and then everybody just knows and expects him to come back out at the end of the show. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I wasn't expecting him to be really to have anything to do. What I mentioned in my predictions was, depending on where he is as far as his progress with his recovery, I had Eddie Kingston as the big surprise. And I even said, fuck it, I would have him win the gauntlet. He was not in the gauntlet, so obviously he is not ready to come back yet. He's got to be close, though. It's been over a year. I know he's been I've seen some training videos with him. I know he's been working to come back, but there was no Eddie Kingston in this match. MJF winning is fine because it makes sense. It was the most predictable outcome. Predictable does not always mean bad. So him winning the contract could make for some very interesting situations as we move forward now, depending on who the champion is at the time that he cashes in. Right now, it's Hangman Page. And certainly MJF has had issues before with Hangman Page. I think they've only had the one match this year. So there are definitely unresolved issues between those two. We've seen them have run-ins and backstage segments since then. So something is going to happen there. But then there's Darby and there's history between MJF and Darby. And can you imagine, the idea that I talked about this a few weeks ago, when the time does come, let's say Darby wins the championship, if MJF immediately, shows up and takes it away from him. And there's a lot of history between those two of the so-called pillars of AEW, two of the AEW originals. Darby hasn't quite been able to figure this guy out. You could always pick up with that story. So MJF having the contract, I have no issue with that. It's about time, frankly, he gets back in the world title mix. Him being a part of the Hurt Syndicate makes things a little bit interesting as far as how that relationship is going to progress. Right now, everything is copacetic. Everything's great, but it won't always be. So I like the outcome. I just didn't think the match was as enjoyable as any of the other gauntlets they've done. We got a quick backstage promo from Stokely Hathaway, who said FTR is now done with the Outrunners, and they will be special guest commentators for the AEW Tag Team title match coming up later on in the show. Now, we were supposed to get a TNT Championship match with Adam Cole defending his title against Kyle Fletcher. We found out earlier today on social media the best laid plans, they don't always work. Injuries happen. and your plans can be all fucked up in an instant. And that was the case here. Tony Khan said that Adam Cole was not medically cleared to defend his title and that he wants Cole to, quote, take some time away to recover. He didn't say from what, just take some time away to recover. So therefore, they were vacating the TNT Championship, and they were going to decide a new champion tonight in a fatal four-way match involving Kyle Fletcher, Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, and, Daniel Garcia. Even I forgot Daniel Garcia's name. He's been such a non-entity recently. But those are the four names that were announced for this match. And we would soon be finding out why, because I had the same question I'm sure many of you had when you found out who the replacements were. Why the fuck is Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara in this match? What the hell do they have to do lately with the TNT title? Nothing. They're the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. It would become clear why they were involved in this match very soon. Adam Cole, though, he comes out to the ring with the TNT title, and he is looking very somber, which you would expect because obviously we know already that he's hurt. Something is obviously wrong. But I think also what was probably weighing on his mind is the fact that this is now the second year in a row where he has had to miss the biggest show of the year, the big stadium show, due to injury. Because last year he was closer to his return than he was the beginning when he first got hurt, but he still wasn't cleared and ready to come back at All In last year. This is the second year in a row now that he's missed this show. So he apologized for being unable to defend the title, said he's going to be gone for a while. Said he doesn't want to talk retirement, but if this indeed is goodbye, and this is where he really started to break down. He was starting to get very emotional. So this is where it was like, okay, this is not any sort of angle here. This is the real deal. So he said if this is indeed goodbye, he felt like he owed it to the fans to speak to them. Since he was 9 years old, all he's ever wanted to be was a pro wrestler. And the support of the fans has meant the world to him. From the highest moments to the recent lows, he has loved the fans forever, and he will love the fans forever. He thanked the fans for making AEW what it is and for changing his life. Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, they joined him in the ring. They had a big group hug, and you could tell that they were emotional as well. They had been crying. And then Cole did one last Adam Cole Bebe pose. And that was the end of the segment. Obviously, this caught me off guard, caught everybody off guard. I was not anticipating this. I know Cole was in a trios match with Paragon against the Don Callis family 48 hours ago. And I did not see the match. I saw part of Collision. I did not see that match. I heard nothing about Cole potentially being hurt or taking a bad bump, scary spot. Didn't hear anything. In fact, they won the match. Everything seemed totally normal. Clearly, something happened in that match, or you would think something happened. I mean, I suppose there's always the possibility that there's been something else going on that we're not aware of, and maybe he got a phone call with some bad test results. I mean, who the hell knows? But let's assume that something must have happened in that match. Is it concussion related? That's where my mind goes. He was out there. It's not like he looked like he had an issue walking, some kind of knee issue or leg issue. He had that horribly broken ankle where he missed a year of his career. It was so bad he needed 2 surgeries. But, a few years ago, he had that horrendous concussion that almost ended his career. He was out for 9 months. That's when he got hurt at Forbidden Door in that 4-way match for the IWGP belt. And so I don't know. I don't know if it's the concussion issue again. You start talking about, potential retirement. It makes me think of Bryan Danielson and Christian, who had their own concussion issues. Whatever it is, it just seems to me in the last 3 years, this guy can't catch a break. It just has been one thing after another. It's been bad luck. It's like if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. Especially on that ankle injury and the way that happened, just diving down from the entrance ramp, coming out to be cheerleader for MJF, and he just hops down off the ramp, and it's just this horrendous injury where now he's got a cadaver bone, in his fucking leg. And so now he's going through this. it was very hard to see him out there as emotional as he is, because it just, everything you hear about him, and you could tell just from watching him do an interview. You could tell from watching one of his streams on Twitch. He just comes across as the nicest guy in the world. You cannot find anybody who will say a bad word having worked with him, been around him, friends. Just seems like the nicest guy in the world. And you want to see him succeed. I've talked about how ever since he came back from injury, he has not been the same in terms of it doesn't feel like the same Adam Cole. He's obviously not being pushed at the same level. He's been the TNT champion. It hasn't been a long run, but he's been TNT champion for a little bit. And the TNT title has just never felt like it means less than it does now. And I'm not blaming Adam Cole for that, because the title was already like that even before he won it. But he didn't do anything to really raise its value, because he's been sort of, pushed down the ladder a little bit, which is understandable. It's just not the same. That injury really did take the wind out of his sails. And so it wasn't like his reign was lighting the world on fire or anything, but it felt like he was working his way back into the mix. And so 6 months from now or a year from now, who knows? Maybe he turns heel again and works his way back into, kind of an upper mid-card picture. The idea that this could potentially be the end for him, that his career may have to go out like this, is very sad. And I hope that's not the case. I hope whatever it is, whatever is ailing him, he's able to overcome it. It sounds like he's going to be gone for a long time again. But I hope that this is not the end. I hope at least that he can come back and go out on his terms. In the way that somebody like Bryan Danielson was able to come back, and Edge was able to come back, and Christian was able to come back. Instead of being told you're not going to be cleared, you're done. You've wrestled your last match. Because he's had a lot of great matches in his career. And there was a lot of hope and expectations for him back when he was in Ring of Honor, back when he was in NXT. When he was in NXT and he was doing the stuff with Undisputed Era and he was the NXT champion, I mean, a lot of people felt like, okay, he's obviously going to go to the main roster and he's going to be a big player for them one day. And there were also a lot of people who just couldn't get over the size factor. They look at him, oh, he's too small. He can't be a main event guy. He can't be a top guy. I think he dispelled that, frankly, not only with that NXT run, but even the work he did with MJF and AEW before that whole story went to shit. Look how that got over, right? I didn't see too many people complaining. Well, I mean, there were, but I didn't see that many people complaining about his size. Oh, I can't buy into this guy as a main eventer. They hit on something special with that story. When you have the right people in the right role, you could strike gold. And for a time, that's what they did with that story. I hope one day he gets the chance to do something like that again. I would hate that this is the last time that we're going to see him inside the ring. We'll see. Again, I don't know if Tony Khan said anything during the scrum, elaborated as far as what the injury is. I'm sure more information will come out in time, and when it does, we'll talk about it then. Daniel Garcia came out, and he had Matt Menard with him. Garcia gave Cole a long hug on the stage. He was reading his lips. He was basically thanking him. Yeah, I'm sure Cole has been sort of a mentor to him. They've been working together in recent months. So he was basically just thanking him for everything. Matt Menard also, gave him a hug. Menard sat in on commentary, and he agreed with Excalibur. At one point here, they made mention of the fact that Kyle Fletcher is the clear favorite here in this match. We should have known then. As soon as they made those comments, we should have known exactly what was going to happen here. But I didn't really put two and two together because in my brain, I couldn't comprehend anybody but Kyle Fletcher winning this match. Guevara hit an early Spanish fly off the apron on Garcia. There was a double figure four spot where Rhodes and Sammy, they reversed it basically. Fletcher and Garcia, they were locked in the hold trying to fight out of it. Later on, Dustin hit a destroyer and crossroads on Kyle. He went for the pin. Fletcher kicked out, and Dustin put Fletcher in position for Shattered Dreams. He was playing to what was a very quiet crowd. This crowd was very, very quiet during this match. And so he's trying to, get everybody to wake up. and he's setting up for Shattered Dreams. Garcia stepped in front of Rhodes and started talking to him. When the crowd booed, Garcia smiled and delivered the kick himself. And Dustin was going to follow up with one. Guevara cut him off and threw a kick of his own. And Dustin finally capped it off by flipping double birds at Fletcher and then hitting Shattered Dreams. Sammy went for a super kick on Garcia, who moved, and he kicked Dustin instead. And Garcia put Sammy in the Dragon Slayer. Guevara escaped, hit a code breaker, and then a GTH. Guevara covered Garcia. Dustin broke up the pin. And Garcia looked upset with Dustin for that one. Or Guevara, rather. Evidently not realizing that this is every man for himself. Dustin told Sammy that this might be his only shot. Fletcher pulled Garcia to ringside, powerbombed him on the apron. Guevara went after Fletcher and also got dumped on the apron. Fletcher set up for the brainbuster, but he released the hold. Sammy jumped from the top rope, and he caught Fletcher with a cutter. Garcia put Rhodes in a Dragon Tamer. Dustin countered with an inside cradle, and he got the surprise pin. People were shocked. I was shocked. And Dustin Rhodes wins the TNT Championship. His first taste of AEW gold. Obviously, he's held championships in Ring of Honor, but never an AEW championship until now. And Dustin was very emotional, sitting in the corner as Aubrey Edwards held the title in front of him. All the announcers, including Matt Menard, they showed them giving Dustin a standing ovation. Dustin finally accepted the belt. He stood up. We saw Wyatt and Wayne Rhodes, who are his nephews. They came out to join him in the ring, as did Ross and Marshall Von Erich. They all hoisted Dustin up, and then finally Sammy Guevara and Dustin shook hands, and they hugged as well. This was about the only thing here to get any real reaction at any point from entrances to exit when it came to this match, was everything that really followed the finish. And it's kind of crazy to think that, at least for now, at least for a few more weeks, Dustin is a champion, Cody is not. It's like the universe has sort of been flipped on its head. If you don't know, Dustin just signed a new 6-year contract with AEW that is going to keep him in the company through the year 2030, I think to the end of that year. And obviously, I'm sure that includes a lot of backstage stuff that he does. It's not like he just wrestles for them, right? He's a coach and a mentor. I think he's got his own school, which is a pipeline now for AEW to potentially pull talent. So I'm sure there's a lot of that that's part of this deal. Do I still see Dustin wrestling, even just the occasional match, come the end of that contract? Probably. I remember when Dustin, I could have sworn Dustin said 2 or 3 years ago that that was going to be it, and here he is. You know, it's hard to let go. And for his part, Dustin, as long as he's been doing this, I mean, he still moves around pretty good. He can still go better than some others can at his age. So he's probably going to go until the wheels fall off. But AEW's got him for another 6 years, kind of keeping him in the fold. You know what? Yeah, it was shocking, but it does 2 things. Number one, it gives Dustin a moment in his home state of Texas. It gives the Texas fans a moment. They were clearly happy, and they reacted to seeing Dustin get this big sort of historic win. It's that big feel-good moment after we just had the exact opposite of a feel-good moment. Everything with Adam Cole was the antithesis of a feel-good moment. There is not a doubt in my mind, and probably any of yours, what the outcome of this match originally was going to be. It was going to be Kyle Fletcher winning the TNT Championship. Of that, I am sure. They had to go to plan B. Circumstances dictated that we have to move on to some other plan here. What are we going to do? We can still get the title on Kyle, or we can give Dustin this moment, give the fans this moment, and we can come back on Wednesday. We don't even have to wait a week. That title is going to Kyle Fletcher. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of which week do they do it. Do they do it on TV this week? Do they do it in a month at the next pay-per-view? Kyle Fletcher, I'm not worried about Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher is going to be the next TNT champion. Plain and simple. But the advertised match got changed, and so I think Tony Khan just wanted to do something special. He wanted to make a moment, and so that's what he did. And now, who knows? Kyle Fletcher may become even more unhinged in his quest to become TNT champion. I don't expect Dustin to have this title for very long, but now Dustin can say that he was a champion in AEW. And he will forever have that moment. So that's fine. I don't have any issue with it. Unfortunately, they were dealt a bad hand with the Cole stuff. Shit happens, and they tried to make the most of it. It's a shame about the actual match itself, though, because I thought the match itself was actually very dull. And the crowd clearly agreed with me and felt the same way. But once Dustin won, they actually seemed very happy. We had the Young Bucks against Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. If the Bucks lose, they surrender their EVP titles. They are no longer recognized as executive vice presidents in this company. But if they win, neither Swerve nor Ospreay will be allowed to challenge for the
Watch me.
Uh-oh.
Say hello to Liver Morgan.
She's with us.
You know you want me, baby.
She's with us tonight. Liver Morgan wants to know what's going on with All In. If the Bucks lose, they surrender their EVP titles. If they win, neither Will Ospreay nor Swerve Strickland are allowed to challenge for the AEW World Championship for an entire year. So they added some stakes here to this match. So it wasn't like there was nothing on the line here. Ospreay got another special Assassin's Creed entrance. He got one last year, if you remember. And so he got another one this year, this time with 12 ninjas. He had six on either side of him as he was making his way down to the ring. This was to promote the Assassin's Creed Shadows game and the fact that it is now 25% off. Which reminds me, I don't know how many of you play games on Steam, maybe on your PC, as I do. I mean, I don't get to play very often, but when I do, or I do Sound Off Gamer or something, that's what I play in. I play in Steam. And they had their summer sale, which just, I think, expired Thursday or Friday. So I said, let me take a look at what we got going on here. I was able to get Batman. It's a kind of an older game at this point, I know, probably 10 years old. But I was able to pick up Batman Arkham Knight for $4. Can't beat that. It's got great reviews. I'm looking forward to checking that out and diving into it. So next, JoJo Offerman made her AEW debut, or I should say her AEW television debut, or her on-camera debut, because I believe she's done some dark work or dark matches as far as announcing. But this was her first time on TV. She was out to sing Shaka Khan's Ain't Nobody ahead of Swerve Strickland's entrance. That's the song he used to come out to for many years on the indies back in the day. JoJo, for those who don't know, JoJo was with WWE as a ring announcer for many years. JoJo was married to Bray Wyatt and had children with Bray Wyatt. But she was married to him at the time that he passed away. I don't think she's done anything in wrestling except, again, stuff like this with AEW, but this was the first time that she's been on TV. So anybody wondering what is the significance of having her sing that song? Again, that's the song that Swerve used to come out to when he was on the indies. It was fine. They were trying to do something special here after she was done singing. Swerve came out with Prince Nana and got his usual entrance. So that was a nice little throwback there with that song. I want to give a shout out to Havili, who just dropped a $65 super chat that I will be reading in a little bit. Thank you, Havili. Good to have you here on a Saturday night. Now, the Young Bucks came out. They were dressed up in Revolutionary War style outfits, and then they set sail. They sailed on a mock wooden ship. I don't know, something made out to look like a ship. It was on some elevated platform that was in the crowd, like opposite hard cam. And they had Justin Roberts deliver an overly long, over-the-top speech for the Founding Fathers. I get that it's supposed to be obnoxious, but did it have to be this long? This was so long that even Will Ospreay was checking the time on his imaginary watch that he wasn't wearing. So this was pretty slow to start because they knew they were going 25 minutes. Nick Jackson went for a buckshot lariat. Ospreay, though, was able to avoid it. The Bucks threw super kicks. We got a rapid-fire flurry of moves from both teams that ended with the Bucks hitting destroyers on both men, only for Swerve to hit a house call, while Ospreay hit a hidden blade. Crowd came alive for that sequence. Swerve set up for a house call kick, but Nick pulled him to the floor and then ran him into the ring steps. Nick super kicked Prince Nana. That got some heat. That drew some loud boos here from this crowd. There were a couple of spots. I mentioned the ineptitude of some of the AEW referees. And so we got it here with Rick Knox, our old friend Rick Knox. Rick Knox is always the official for Young Bucks matches. I think this goes back to their days in PWG. He's like remember how Alberto Del Dipshit used to have his own personal ring announcer, right? Ricardo Rodriguez would come out and announce him to the ring. Rick Knox is basically the Young Bucks' personal referee. Always him when it comes to their matches. And it's always the same bullshit where he doesn't see this and he doesn't see that. So in this case, again, worst referee in all of wrestling as far as how he's portrayed here on these shows. So there was one spot here where the Bucks, one of the Bucks, whichever one, Matt Jackson, I think it was, had his feet very clearly on the ropes, but it was in such a way where there's no way the referee didn't see this, right? But of course, Rick Knox is either legally blind or he's dumb or both, and so he didn't see it. Then there was a spot where one of the Young Bucks lifted their leg behind them, but it was done in such a way where, again, the referee should have seen this, and he had to pretend like he didn't, and it just made him look so stupid. I don't know why. Both companies, they make their referees look so stupid. They both do it. The Bucks hit the TK driver on Swerve on the floor. Back in the ring, Matt Jackson hit Will Ospreay with his own hidden blade. Matt hoisted Ospreay up. The Bucks hit more bang for your buck, which led only to a near fall. The Bucks set up for an EVP trigger, which I guess they're going to have to rename that now after tonight. But he was setting up for an EVP trigger on Will Ospreay. He avoided the move initially, but they ended up connecting and they had him beat, but Swerve returned to break up the pin just in time. Ospreay went for a hidden blade on one of the Bucks, but he ducked. Ospreay accidentally blasted Swerve. And this is where I was wondering. I was saying, okay, if things don't go the way of the babyfaces in this match, this is going to be the pivotal moment right here. If they lose this match, if Will Ospreay is the one who eats the pin in this match, after blasting Swerve, or because of that, maybe Swerve gets pinned, but he blames Ospreay, and it was Ospreay's idea to add that stipulation to the match where neither of them can challenge for the championship. This could be the catalyst for a Swerve Strickland heel turn if they lose. So I was thinking maybe this would be an important moment. The Bucks hit Ospreay with an EVP trigger, and then Nick covered him for a near fall. Then they hit the TK driver on Ospreay, only another near fall. The Bucks positioned Ospreay on his knees, and they had his arms draped over the middle rope, so he's just sort of hanging there. And they took turns super kicking him in the face. So Swerve now gets in front of Ospreay to try to protect his partner. And he ate some super kicks himself. Swerve then fired up. He got blasted with a double super kick. The Bucks went for an EVP trigger. Swerve avoided it. Ospreay took out Nick with a hidden blade. And then they held up Matt while Swerve hit him with a double stomp into a tombstone pile driver because Ospreay had him in a tombstone position. So we got that combo move. Only for a near fall. We got a stomp into a tombstone. Only for two. Moments later, Swerve and Ospreay hit a simultaneous house call hidden blade combo on Matt. And then they pinned him. If you were just going to go to that, I mean, why not just end the match on the stomp into the tombstone? Is that not good enough? They won the match, though. That's the most important thing. Again, it started slow. It kept picking up in the closing moments to where they had the crowd going nuts for everything that they were doing. This was the usual craziness that you get in a Young Bucks match where there's a lot of rapid-fire moves, plenty of big spots and kickouts from those big moves. But this was an excellent match. It's an excellent match with a finish that I actually found mildly surprising. I thought that they would be very tempted to go heavy on the heel wins on this show to set up for Hangman being, I would say, the lone babyface win, but like the key babyface win at the end of the night. And so they went in the predictable direction as they did with MJF in the Gauntlet match, where it's like, they're not going to take away Swerve and Ospreay's chances of challenging for the championship for an entire year. And they didn't. So they didn't handcuff themselves to that stipulation, which would have been kind of interesting to see what they would have done with Swerve. With Ospreay, I could see it because you have, I mean, most likely they're going back to Wembley for All In next year, probably in August. You could have built a story around the fact that Ospreay hasn't been able to challenge for this title, and now he wins the Owen, which he did not do this year. Next year, he actually wins it, and he could win the championship at Wembley. I got news for you. That may be how it goes down regardless, even though they won this match here. I think if they want to save a big moment for Will Ospreay when he finally wins that title, it may well be at Wembley. That may be Tony Khan's, idea heading into next year. But they played it straight, and again, they gave the win to the baby faces here. No more EVP titles for the Young Bucks, thank God. Look, they may be EVPs in reality, but playing that card on television is so played out at this point. It almost had to happen this way. So now, I guess they're no longer Matthew and Nicholas. Now they're Matt and Nick. And the key here, I think, is just going to be filming these segments and these vignettes of them in the back, showing how they are now treated by everybody else. Now that they don't have the same power anymore that corrupted them before, they don't have that to hold over people's heads. You got to have these backstage segments of them interacting with different people, walking down the hallway, getting laughed at, stuff like that, just to kind of, flesh that story out a little bit more and show us what the repercussions are of them no longer having this power that they've had for this entire time. We had the women's casino gauntlet match with the winner earning a future AEW Women's World Championship opportunity. Kris Statlander and Megan Bayne, they were out. Actually, Megan Bayne was out with Penelope Ford. But they opened at number 1 and 2. Willow Nightingale entered at number 3. That's two women.
By the power of Valhalla,
and there's Javier.
It's vintage coal tar.
There's our boy Havili. And Coulter making an appearance here on the show. I don't know why he wasn't in the casino gauntlet. I would have had him for the win if he was in there. Just put his head down with those antlers and that's all you got to do. But yeah, they had two women already here right at the beginning of this match, both from Long Island. Coming off a men's gauntlet match where the winner is from Long Island. A lot of Long Island representation here in Texas. Statlander offered a handshake when Willow came in, and Willow basically said, "I don't think so," and they started slugging it out. Statlander missed an axe kick, which allowed Willow to hit a low cross body and a spine buster. Bayne, though, was there to break up the Dr. Bomb attempt. Statlander and Bayne, they hit a double choke slam to Willow. Sorry, I lapse into that every now and then. So then Ty Mello was out at number 4. She had Anna Jay in her corner. Anna simply was not entered into the gauntlet. They didn't explain why. Why couldn't she be in the gauntlet? I don't know. She's a great friend. She sacrificed her own entry into this gauntlet to walk Ty Mello down to the ring for this match. We got a scary counter out of a Fate's Descent into a Rings of Saturn. Looked like Megan Bayne spiked her own head into the mat on that reversal from Mello. Penelope saved her friend as she went up top, but Anna distracted her long enough for Harley Cameron to appear. She slowly rose up like a monster. She was on the apron, and she has this protective face mask on because she had her nose broken. She had surgery recently for it, so they got her a spot on this show. And they sent Ford crashing off the top outside. Ford was then chased to the back by Harley and Anna, never to be seen again. Then it was time for Tekla, the Spider Lady. She was out at number 5. Julia Hart with Sky Blue in her corner. She was out at number 6. Hart went up top, hit a moonsault onto Statlander and Bayne, who were standing in the ring just waiting around, waiting to be dove upon. Queen Aminata was number 7. She put Tekla down with a neck breaker. Sky Blue got into the ring and helped Julia again. This is all legal, even though she's not officially part of this match. That led to Julia giving a superplex to Willow while Tekla performed the same move on Aminata in the opposite corner. So then Julia Hart and Tekla, they both hung upside down from the ropes, looking at each other. Mina Shirakawa was number 8. And then at number 9, entering to a big reaction here, Texas native, longest reigning champion of any kind in Ring of Honor history. She is approaching 1,000 days as the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. She was hoping to get a role on this show. She got her wish. Athena enters the gauntlet at number 9. She put Aminata down with the tombstone pile driver, had her pin, but Willow broke it up. Thunder Rosa, who just lost to Athena last night at Supercard of Honor, she was number 10. Number 11 was Shuri in her AEW debut, former IWGP Women's Champion. Mina had a big smile on her face when she looked up at the screen and saw that Shuri was coming out because they have history together in Stardom. Number 12 was another newcomer here to the AEW roster. Now, this was not her debut. I think she's had a few matches on some of the shows before, but a lot of people have probably never seen her before. Alex Windsor, who went right after Shuri. Windsor just got engaged, for those who don't know, because they did announce it publicly. She just got engaged last month to Will Ospreay. So when Ospreay talks about how he's constantly traveling back and forth from the US to the UK, which is pretty crazy. I mean, he's doing it every week. And even he has said that, like, it's very taxing. Like, dude, I took one trip to Texas. I did a hit and run in Texas yesterday and today, and I don't want to fly again for 6 months. I don't like it. I can't imagine making that trip just about every single week. Like, he's out of his mind. But he's talked about how, I guess Alex has a daughter, not a daughter, I'm sorry, a son. And so it's kind of like the adopted son for Will. And he doesn't want to pull him out of school or anything like that. And so that's why they've still been staying where they are. But when he talks about his family and his lady and son, that's who he's referring to. So she popped up here in this gauntlet match. Shuri bulldogged Windsor, who came right back with a Blue Thunder Bomb. And Shuri dropped Windsor with a knee strike, covered her, but a bunch of women got into the ring, got back into the ring to break up the pin. Julia and Tekla, they applied spider-like moves over the ropes. Tarantula there by Julia Hart. While Aminata used her leg. This was a real sequence of events here, okay? Let me repeat this. This is what I wrote. Julia and Tekla applied spider-like moves over the ropes while Aminata used her legs to pull Statlander's face into her ass. That's what happened. I'll let you form the visual in your head, but that's exactly what happened here. That was a thing that happened. Statlander and Bayne, they went at it again. Statlander powerbombed Bayne off the apron and onto a group of wrestlers on the floor. Shirakawa put Thunder Rosa down, and once she stood up, Mina dropped her with a spinning back fist. Mina set up for a figure 4. Athena, though, from out of nowhere, off the top rope, comes flying in and delivers the O-face. Drops her with her big move, gets a big pop for it, and wins the gauntlet and the contract for a future AEW Women's World Championship match. I believe this was only the second women's gauntlet ever that AEW has done. First one they did, I know, was on TV earlier this year. That was where Megan Bayne, I'll say, debuted. She had been under contract for a while, but she was, I don't know where she was. I mean, she was signed for so long, and we never even saw her on TV. So for all intents and purposes, that was her debut earlier this year or late last year, whenever it was in the first women's gauntlet. And so I believe this was number 2. So by default, this was the best women's gauntlet that AEW has ever done. Just by process of elimination. It wasn't great. It had its moments. It wasn't great. Best moment clearly was Athena, though, winning this match. I'm very happy to see it. I was tempted to pick her, but again, when I do these predictions for the pay-per-views on the show, I'm not doing Solomonster's hopes and dreams. I'm doing Solomonster's predictions of what I think is actually going to happen. And I just didn't think it was going to happen. I figured she would be in the match. We've seen her on Collision now the last few weeks in some 8-woman tags and doing some stuff. And being in Texas, I mean, it would have been booking malpractice for her to be there and not find her a role on the show. But for her to actually win it would seem to imply that Tony Khan is ready to give her more of a presence on Dynamite and on these AEW shows going forward. And I have been left at a loss for words now for months on end as to why this hasn't already happened. I just don't understand it. So I just sort of gave up after a while. I'm like, all right, well, he's got his reasons for doing it the way that he's doing it. But in the meantime, again, this woman is not really being exposed to the wider audience that I think she deserves. And I just think she would be a great addition to that AEW women's division. And it's nice that she can run up the score in Ring of Honor and she's going to hit 1,000 days as champion. Great. Okay, so she hits 1,000 days. Then what? She's already the longest reigning champion. It's like the whole Roman Reigns thing. And what did he end up with? Like 1,300 days, 1,340, something like that. Who gives a shit? Like there were people who were still, even before he lost the title, oh, he's got to hit this number. He's got to hit this milestone. He's got to pass Hogan. He's got to do... Who cares? Like, seriously, who gives a shit? The run that he was on, like, he was already a made guy. He had already set all kinds of records with that run, as she has done. You don't have to hit a perfectly round number to, move this woman on to something more than what they have her doing. The fact that she won the match, very encouraging to see. I would hope it's not a one-and-done situation where she cashes in and loses, or... she spends a little bit of time on AEW television, but Tony still wants to keep her mostly to Ring of Honor. That has to die. Like, that has to stop. And you've got to get her into the mix with all these other women that we see on TV every week. All these women you saw here in this gauntlet, she's got to be in regular stories with them on AEW television. So now she not only still has the ROH title, but she's got this contract that she can cash in at any time, whenever she's good and ready. And that is honestly the best possible outcome that we could have had here. And her being a Texas girl, the fans were very happy to see her walk out with the win. So, love the finish. The match itself, not so much. And actually, this next match is another great example of that. The Hurt Syndicate defending their AEW tag team titles in a triple threat match against JetSpeed, Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight, and the Patriarchy, Christian Cage and Nick Wayne. FTR with Stokely Hathaway at ringside to provide color commentary for the match. Stokely wasn't on commentary. He was there with them. FTR, though, was there just to talk and to observe. West Side Gun and Smoke Dizza sang, my favorite artist, sang Lashley and Benjamin to the ring, who also had MVP and MJF with them. They came out too. So the bell rings, and immediately Benjamin and Lashley, who you would never know, but I have to bring this up because this is also very ridiculous, right? So like we saw what happened tonight with Samoa Joe and later on with Will Ospreay. They did stretcher jobs, right? They had that chair wrapped around their neck. Claudio stomped on it. When we were watching, those of you who were, Dynamite this past week, if you recall, they finally had the Hurt Syndicate, or they tried to make the Hurt Syndicate look weakened. And they did this by having not only JetSpeed, but then Christian Cage and Nick Wayne coming out to attack them. And do you remember what they did to Bobby Lashley? They took a chair. I believe it was JetSpeed may have done it first, but Patriarchy came out. They're really the ones who did the concertos multiple times to Bobby Lashley's leg. And I thought, okay, number one, they're trying to create this, obvious weakness in his game going into this match now. All of a sudden, oh, well, he's an injured Bobby Lashley. He's got a bad wheel. He's going to be selling the knee, or they're going to be targeting the knee. He came out here, looked totally fine. Wasn't limping. No tape around the leg. Everything was fine. I'm not sure why they even bothered doing that on Wednesday. This was only a few days ago. I found that to be very strange. But right from the bell here, they destroy everyone. MVP and MJF, they had some words with Kip Sabian and Mother Wayne, who were also at ringside. Sabian tried to save Cage from an ankle lock and ate a pump knee for his troubles. Massive spine buster by Lashley, flattened Speedball. Kevin Knight tried to make the save. Lashley, though, mowed him down as well. This has been the story for the most part now for weeks with JetSpeed. Outside of maybe one show, one or two shows, for the most part, they have been flattened. They have been destroyed by these men. At no point have I ever felt that these titles were in any great jeopardy heading into this pay-per-view. Even though they tried here in this last week, you weren't convincing me of that. And I don't think I was the only one who would fall into that category. Bayley got launched onto the Patriarchy outside by way of an overhead German suplex. Nick was flattened with a Dominator, but Cage managed a reverse DDT. Benjamin flew in with a spin kick. JetSpeed hit stereo dives as Lashley sent Christian into FTR over by the announce desk. Throws him into them. And then he pie faces Dax Harwood. So Christian dodged a spear. He tried for a kill switch. Lashley, though, sent Cage crashing into FTR on the apron now, which led to Lashley hitting a spear and then getting the pin on Christian to retain the tag team titles. The match was nothing special at all. The match was merely a backdrop for the angle that took place when the match was over. It was a means to an end. JetSpeed got some offense in this match. Again, at no point did they ever convince me successfully, like in the booking up until this show, that JetSpeed had any real prayer of walking out of here with those tag team titles. I didn't fall for it. And adding Christian and Nick Wayne, to me, just made it more obvious, like they were the fall guys. You know, whether it was going to be Christian taking the pin, I thought maybe it would be Nick Wayne taking the pin. But they were clearly positioned here to be the fall guys in this match. Now, when it was over, FTR and Stokely Hathaway get in the ring. Nick Wayne, though, and Kip Sabian, they're standing in front of Christian, who shoved them aside, and there was some trash talking, and Christian said, you know what, we're leaving. Let's go. He went to go leave. Nick grabs his dad, pulls him back into the ring, and lays out his father with a kill switch. The Patriarchy has excommunicated Christian Cage from his own group. Mother Wayne is laughing. She has a big smile on her face. She's very proud of her baby boy. Kip Sabian is not lifting a finger to help Christian. He's obviously either in on it or he, agrees with what they're doing. So Mother Wayne smacks Christian around a little bit because they have him on his knees now and they're holding him. So she starts to slap him around. Sabian goes and fetches some steel chairs, and FTR presents them to Nick to do the honors, because you know what's coming next. And he was about to put Christian out of his misery with a concerto when You Think You Know Him plays over the loudspeaker. Here comes Adam Copeland. Last time we saw Adam Copeland, he was destroyed by FTR. That was back in April. So he makes his way out. This was the least surprising twist of the night, was him making his return here. Because you knew he was going to be
Attention to the sicko in row 4. Look, I know you're excited to be at Dynamite tonight. It's your first show, but you can't be pulling that thing out. Okay, you got to put that away.
Fuck Triple H.
And don't think I didn't see that sign that you brought that said, I came to see AEW. That's sick. Thank you.
Oh, the sickos. I love that little fuck Triple H there. Larceny, thank you for the $40. Thank you, my sicko friend. Gonna get to your message here in a little bit. Get them on in. We're actually halfway towards a double Be the Booker goal. If we get some more of those orange ones. Thank you, brother. So anyway, Copeland comes out. But not before he goes to either side of the stage to pose. That's what he does when he comes out and does his entrance, right? He goes to this side and says, gimme, gimme, gimme. And then he goes to the other side, gimme, 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 right? So then he goes to the ramp and he's not done yet. Even though Christian is still laying there dead in the ring, He stops on the ramp and he points up to the sky and he gets the big pyro celebration. They're shooting pyro off for him. He's got to get his shit in. Even though Nick Wayne could have caved Christian's head in 10 times over by now if he wanted to. But I guess he was so stunned by what he was witnessing. Maybe the pyro scared him. They spared Christian. So now, here comes Copeland down to the ring. He has Spike with him. Spike, for those of you who don't remember, is the wooden board with the nails in it. So he has Spike in his possession as he makes his way down to the ring. Copeland outdid Jeff Hardy. I mean, I still can't get over the little Jeff Hardy dance. See, that was worse, though. That was worse because, at least in this case, like, Copeland and Christian have not yet made up and fully reunited, right? You could argue that this was more about coming out and getting revenge on FTR. He was kind of saving Christian. With Jeff, though, like, that's his brother, like his literal brother, who is being destroyed. And Jeff not only stopped, but he danced. I mean, to me, that's far worse. Like, if my brother did that to me, like, I would just disown him. Like, we wouldn't even be on speaking terms anymore. Same concept, though, I guess. So he mows down Sabian, who comes out after him. Mows down Sabian with a big boot in the aisle. Then he catches Dax and Cash in the ring with a double spear. Then Sabian takes more of a proper spear. FTR and Stokely, they bail through the crowd. Nick and Mother Wayne, they leave up the ramp. So now in the ring, Christian is slowly coming to terms here with what is going on as he is shaking off the cobwebs. And Copeland tosses Spike aside, on the mat, helps Christian up and says, not go fuck yourself, like Christian said to him once. He says, go find yourself. And he leaves. Doesn't quite have the same punch to it. Go find yourself. And that leaves Christian alone to contemplate, what he just heard, trying to figure out his next move. So things are now in motion for where we thought this was all headed. Now they have set things in motion for the inevitable reunion between Copeland and Christian, which is something Tony Khan has wanted to do from the moment he brought Adam Copeland into this company. He feuded them instantly. But being able to get that first Edge and Christian reunion in over a decade, he's been waiting for this. And he probably will want to put the tag team titles on them. So it makes me wonder, because in this match, we saw there was a little back and forth there between FTR and the Hurt Syndicate. And there really are no teams that we could think of that pose any sort of real threat, seemingly, to the Hurt Syndicate. Unless you want to say the Young Bucks or something like that, but the Young Bucks are not challenging the Hurt Syndicate for the tag team titles. So a Copeland Christian team would certainly fit that bill, but it would make more sense to me if you were to get those titles off of them first and onto FTR. So that when you do the match between Copeland and Christian and FTR, it's a tag team championship match. And if you want to get the belts on them and give them just even a token run with them, they should beat FTR for it. I mean, that's where the real issue lies between Copeland and FTR. They tried to take him out. They tried to end his career. The ultimate revenge would be not just to beat them, but to beat them and take the tag team titles from them. So that would mean that the Hurt Syndicate would have to drop those belts to FTR sometime in this next, 30 days, 45 days? We have about 60 days, a little over 60 days before we hit September 20th. That's All Out. It's in Toronto. That is the place to do it. If you're going to do the match, if you're going to do a title change, that's the place to get that done. An Edge and Christian reunion in Toronto just makes all the sense in the world to me. So now that we know they're clearly doing it, why would you save it for any other date? Why wouldn't you build that as an attraction for that pay-per-view? All Out is typically one of their bigger shows of the year. That's where I would expect it to take place. But Christian taking the loss here, I guess the idea is that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back for Nick Wayne. He took the losing fall. You failed. you're gone. I don't know if that's the end of the patriarchy. I don't know if Nick Wayne is going to become the new leader, which, I mean, that just sounds ridiculous to me. But I think we have to get Christian and Nick Wayne first. So we'll get that match and just, again, take your time telling that story between Cope and Christian. There's got to be some interviews or interactions between them. They've got to iron out their differences and kind of air out their dirty laundry. And that's where the episodic part of the show comes into play. You know, you just got to tell that story in the right way. I'm sure those two guys are very hands-on with what they do. I'm sure they've already talked about this. They've already planned and plotted, you know, how we're going to get from point A to point B. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they get there. Instead of just putting them together, I mean, the real fun with this kind of stuff is the journey there and how you get there. That's why I love that segment so much on Collision with Swerve and Hangman. I just thought that was tremendous storytelling. So then, almost 4 hours, I shit you not, into this pay-per-view, we had our first of 3 main events here on this show. We had Timeless Toni Storm defending the AEW Women's World Championship against the reigning TBS champion, the winner of the Owen Hart tournament, Mercedes Mone. Mercedes, the belt collector, taking on Toni Storm. Mercedes walked to the ring wearing a robe bearing all of the names of the women that she has defeated since coming to AEW, all of her victims. It's a long robe. It was so long, in fact, that as she was walking to the ring, it looked like the camera guy accidentally stepped on it. She couldn't move there for a sec. She kind of glanced behind her like, get the fuck off. That's how long this robe was. So Britt Baker technically got some screen time tonight. It was just very brief. It was only for a few seconds, but we had a Britt Baker return here on the show. If you look real close at the robe, you could spot her name on there. So we had an old-timey film that was shown as part of Toni Storm's entrance, where a single spotlight shone on the stage as she walked out with a cane. She looked like an old woman. It was old, elderly Toni Storm. But she tossed the cane aside, she clicked her feet together, and then made her traditional entrance with Luther. They had this great production effect, and they did this again when the match was over, where when she came out, everything was black and white. Most everything was black and white. She was black and white. But then there were certain people, if they had like a red hat on or a red shirt, you saw these like spots of red. And I just thought, I don't know that I've seen them use that particular effect on this show before. I've seen that in movies and stuff. But that was very cool, the way that they did that. Both women lock up. They refuse to break. So they spill outside. They climb the steps back to the apron. Mercedes holds the ropes open. She's trying to be very magnanimous here. She's going to let her back into the ring. Toni, of course, doesn't trust this woman. So instead of taking the bait and going through the ropes, she actually slides under the ropes. And then Monet gets a statement maker very briefly, but Toni escapes. Then she spanks Mercedes and calls her a bad girl. Monet is forced to regroup, and that leaves Toni in the ring to mock her with the CEO dance. Step-up knee sent Storm falling back into the arms of Luther, so Monet decided to take them both out with a Meteora off the apron. Back inside, a sunset bomb out of the corner befalls Toni. Took a hard fall there, and then there was another one into the corner, into the buckles by Mercedes. Mercedes ended up sliding in between the legs of Toni Storm and then delivered a powerbomb to her on the floor after that. Monet continued the onslaught in the ring. Toni momentarily regained control with a sky high, but Mercedes sank in an armbar. Three Amigos connects, and Monet went up top for a frog splash. Toni got the knees up, though. High stack German suplexes from Toni, followed by sweet cheek music in the corner, and she hit Storm Zero for a very close near fall. The chicken wing is applied. Monet, though, bit her way out of it. Both women traded tombstone attempts before Mercedes locked in an ankle lock. Toni rolled through, and we got a forearm battle between both women, and then they were throwing dueling headbutts, and both of them collapsed. Monet got a close series of near falls before spiking her with a Monet maker for 2. That left her shocked. She couldn't believe that she kicked out of that. Monet pulled Storm up and gave her a kiss before trying for the Monet Maker again, but Toni countered into a Toni driver. Toni missed the Meteora, but Storm hit an over-the-back spinning cutter for 2. That's the best way I can describe it. It looked cool. Monet got a backstabber into a Statement Maker variation. Toni countered with a Bulldog choke. Toni rolled through into 3 consecutive Storm Zeros. Hits one, rolls back up, hits a second one, rolls back up, hits a third one. I said, she better not fucking kick out of this move. And so what happens? She covers Mercedes, and Mercedes kicks out. That was the one part of the match that I absolutely hated. As much as I loved this match, I hated that she hit that move 3 times and Mercedes just kicked out. I just thought that was incredibly stupid. And also, by the way, seeing her kick out of that gave me a very bad feeling about what the outcome of this match was going to be. And so that coupled, I think, with the earlier win from Athena, I'm watching this going, oh, this woman, I'm totally wrong here. She's definitely winning this match after that. Toni wanted another sweet cheek music, but Monet popped up into a small package for a 2 count. She held onto the rope right in front of Aubrey Edwards, who, again, is either going blind or simply doesn't give a shit. Monet hit a backstabber, only for Toni to answer with a desperation sweet cheek music. Toni brought Monet up to the top rope and returned the favor with a kiss of her own, and then delivered an Avalanche Storm Zero. And I said, don't kick out. And she didn't. She pins Mercedes Monet to retain the AEW Women's World Championship, handing Mercedes her first singles loss in an AEW ring. That Avalanche Storm Zero that she spiked her with was brutal. And again, I was very happy that she did not kick out of that. The greatest women's match in AEW history, I think, bell to bell, just in terms of just a professional wrestling match. We're not talking plunder. We're not talking the payoff to some long, drawn-out, vicious story. I mean, that's what we had between Toni and Mariah May. That's the greatest story that they have told with the women in AEW. And honestly, it's up there as one of the best stories they've told in general. Not the best, but one of the better stories they've told, especially long-term stories, in AEW history. It was so well done. And as it turned out, with Mariah leaving, that Hollywood ending was just the perfect cap, right? The perfect cap to their feud when all is said and done. Even though we didn't necessarily know at that time that that was going to be the last time we would see Mariah May under that name in an AEW ring. That match, it was a lot shorter. I didn't write down how long this match was. It had to be in the 20-minute range. It probably was the longest women's match in AEW history. I know Mercedes set that record when she wrestled, I think, Statlander at World's End. This, I would be shocked if this didn't break that record and ended up as the longest singles women's match in AEW history. But, you know, I'm watching this match and I'm just like, this is just a really great professional wrestling match back and forth between these two women. And it did not have that reliance on tables and chairs and broken glass and, you know, the kind of stuff we see so much of. There was some blood in the match because Toni was just naturally bleeding from the nose. She got bopped in the nose and had a little bit of blood, but otherwise that was pretty much it. And I just really enjoyed this. So for me, maybe not for you, but for me, this is the best women's wrestling match that we have seen in AEW. And will go down as one of the better AEW matches of the year. That's a tough list to be at the top of, but it's certainly somewhere on that list. And absolutely the right outcome. That's what I was most happy about here. I picked Toni to win, but if you were to ask me, are you really confident that Tony Khan is going to give Toni Storm the win? Like, no, I wouldn't bet money on it. I mean, if you believe that Mercedes was going to just go in there and win the championship, you are well within your rights to believe that. I mean, there's nothing I could sit here and say that, oh, well, that's just ridiculous. Why would you think that she's going to do that? All signs pointed to that being the outcome here. The fact that it didn't go down that way, and she actually took her first loss, I was happily mildly but happily surprised by that because it's just the right outcome. She still has the TBS championship. It's not like she's dead in the water here. It's her first loss. She still has belt after belt after belt. And now they could take different approaches with this depending on what the direction is that they have in mind for her. Because remember, Athena has the contract. I fully believe that they're going to circle back around to Mercedes and Athena because they only had the one match. That story between them is untapped and has yet to be resolved. They had one fucking match, and it was a really good match. And then we didn't see Athena on television again for weeks and weeks and weeks. So they have to come back around to it. I think when they do come back around to it, it's very possible Mercedes will be the champion, or maybe even Athena will be the champion. Just because Mercedes didn't win tonight does not mean that she's not getting that world title. She's absolutely getting that world title. I just can't tell you exactly when that's going to be. I can't tell you if it's going to be from Toni Storm or if it's going to end up being from somebody else. More likely than not, it will be from someone else other than Toni. Is Athena going to cash in her opportunity soon on Toni? Is she going to sit on it for the next 6 months? We'll have to wait and see. But I just can't imagine that they don't circle back around to Mercedes and Toni at some point, even next year. There's just so much more meat left on the bone there. There's so much more that you could do with those two. But, again, when you think about what you were expecting to get out of this show, and everybody is different, but I could tell you as far as what I was hoping to get out of this show, I was hoping that Athena would be in a prime spot of some kind. She ends up winning the Gauntlet, which guarantees that she's going to get more screen time, at least briefly, on AEW television. That's fucking great. Toni Storm beat Mercedes Mone. That's great. The Young Bucks lost, right? Stripped away of these EVP titles that they keep using on TV as this TV, gimmick to kind of mirror real life. Great. Wonderful. It's all played out. I don't need to see them, continuing to abuse their power on television every single week. There were a lot of very positive outcomes to matches on this show, and this is one of the chief ones right here. The run that Toni Storm has been on has been fantastic, just in terms of how she has been able to evolve this character, keep it entertaining, right? She's always trying to come up with different witty things to say and things to do, and I just think as much as people do give her credit, it still feels like maybe she doesn't get quite enough credit for what she has matured into in this company. She is one of the most important players on that roster, male or female. When I look at Mercedes Mone, she gets a lot of shit for winning all of her matches, and she's winning because she tells Toni she wants to win. Do I think Mercedes is walking in every week and telling Tony Khan, that don't work for me, brother? The old Triple H story where the writer came to go show him the script for Raw that night, and Triple H didn't even bother reading it. Just tell me, am I fucking going over? Yeah, you're going over. Okay, good. Goodbye. Do I believe that Mercedes is doing that? No. No, I don't. I believe that Tony Khan wanted to build her up as strong as he could possibly make this woman, with the idea that when the time was right and she was in the ring with, in his view, the right person, she'll finally lose. And this was what he wanted to build to this big match, which honestly was the biggest potential women's match they could do, two biggest women's stars, on this stadium show in front of 25,000 people. But along the way, she has beaten so many different people in route to All In and in route to where we are now, and has held on to that TBS championship, that it really does feel like the women's division it's handcuffed in that they don't have a lot to fight for. That's where the TBS title, like the TNT title, can be very helpful. That should have been the idea. I think that was the idea behind forming women's US and intercontinental titles in WWE. Because for a long time, if your name wasn't Rhea Ripley or Charlotte Flair or Tiffany Stratton, you weren't in that top mix. You didn't have anything to fight for. Women's tag team titles that have largely been useless. So you create these secondary championships to give people something to do on these shows and have something they could fight for and believably could hold. And if you're lucky, it'll be a stepping stone to something bigger, right? That's what the TBS title should be. I don't see how it's doing anybody any good to just keep it on her for an indefinite period of time And now it's like, well, we'll have her challenge for the world title as well. So had she won that championship tonight, I think it would have been a big black mark on that women's division. It would have been a huge negative. The fact that it didn't happen is great. Opens up some possibilities now. I don't know if she's going to go into a downward spiral and lose all of her gold now. Now, again, a lot of those championships that she has, Tony Khan doesn't have any creative say in, you win this title, you drop that title. I mean, those titles don't belong to him. I don't know that those promoters want her to drop those titles so quickly. They're counting on having her back. They love the idea of being able to book a Mercedes Moné match and have her, come back to town, even if it's in another country, and defend that championship. But eventually she will lose those titles. We'll see if they do the full downward spiral type thing or if this just potentially leads to a rematch. Maybe we get Toni and Mercedes Part 2 at Forbidden Door. We'll see. But one thing I will say about this Mercedes run, in the ring, I mean, it's been an incredible run. Quality of the matches that she has had during this run, I don't see how anybody can criticize that. You can criticize the booking and the handling of her and all the time, like that's fair. But one thing you cannot say is that she has not gone out there and delivered and performed in the ring. I can only think of one real stinker that she's had, and that goes back to last year. Otherwise, she's always having good matches, very good matches. This was an excellent match, and both women deserve a lot of credit for that.
I am the learner.
Shut the fuck up. Man, he wasn't on the show tonight. Fuck that tree. Conspicuous by his absence was the learning tree. I thought they wouldn't put him in the Gauntlet match, would they? But no learning tree on this show. In our second of 3 main events on this show, it was Kenny Omega, the AEW International Champion with Kota Ibushi in his corner, out there in his street clothes, against Kazuchika Okada, the Continental Champion, who was escorted out by Don Callis. This was winner takes all to crown the first ever unified AEW champion. It's a little confusing about how this is all going to work. I feel like they've just confused it more than they had to, because Tony Khan has said that the lineage for each title will continue. It is not being discontinued in favor of having this one new lineage for this one new unified championship. So the lineage of the individual belts is going to continue, and it's entirely possible, he said, that the new champion may carry all 3 belts around. So that sounds to me like the whole, All Japan Triple Crown thing that Eddie Kingston was doing actually for a while, heading into that first Continental Classic. And I'm like, well, if you're going to do that, I mean, just why even bother creating a new championship in the first place if that's what you end up doing? So I just really hope they don't do that. I mean, frankly, I would have been fine with them just keeping the international title, because I just think design-wise, it's a much nicer looking, visually pleasing championship. But why even make a third belt if that's all that you're going to do? It just seems so unnecessary to me. But the idea is that these 2 titles are now unified. You got one plate on one side of the belt showing Kenny Omega doing the One-Winged Angel. On the other side, Okada doing the Rainmaker. So they're both. And it doesn't matter who ends up holding this unified title. It could be fucking Mother Wayne can win the championship. Those side plates will still be there because these are the 2 men who unified it. So I guess they'll always have a plate on that belt. But Jim Ross joined on commentary for not only this match, but both main events here that were left on the show. And this was the first time that we have heard JR on commentary since he was treated successfully for colon cancer. And he had surgery, and he has been given a clean bill of health. Apparently his doctor said they got all the cancer. He is cancer-free, which is great news. But he's been through a lot, and I know he was really hoping to be at this show. It was very important to him that he be at this show. And so it was nice to hear his voice. I thought he did well. He did well. He was out there. Beginning of the first match, his voice sounded a little weak. Again, he's been through a lot of shit. He's an older man now, but it felt to me like as things went along and then we went into the main event of the show, he actually sounded better, than he did at the beginning. So it was good to see him doing well, because I know that was a very scary time there for a while. We got a live performance for Omega's entrance by Jason Charles Miller. Now, look, I know that it's got that Final Fantasy vibe. I don't know if it's from the actual game or the composer of the game music created this song, but I know that's what Omega's a fan of the Final Fantasy franchise, and I get all that. I deeply dislike that he came out to this and not Battle Cry. Battle Cry is such a far superior song. I think he's only using this maybe for pay-per-views, maybe to give it more of that epic feel. Big mistake. Like, it got no reaction from the crowd. When he came out, like, this is Kenny Omega. Like, Okada got a reaction coming out, and he's the heel. Omega came out, and it just, at least watching on television, maybe it was different if you were in the building, but watching on television, it's like, they're not really reacting. And I think a big part of it had to do with that fucking music. So I just had to get that out of the way. I deeply dislike that he is coming out to that song now. It's from Final Fantasy 16. It says unregistered hypercam. I don't care. But then again, I also feel like Jon Moxley's original instrumental music, Unscripted Violence, when he first came to AEW, is far superior to any of the other themes that he has had since then. He should go back to that original theme. Once they sounded the bell, they got a standing ovation. They had not even touched. They got a standing ovation, followed by a "This is awesome" chant. Early in the match, Don Callis was out there. He ended up sitting in on commentary. He stood up from the commentary booth and started throwing punches at Omega while Okada distracted the referee, which is not hard to do. Okada pulled Omega onto the Spanish announce desk, and he spiked him with a DDT right on the lid of the table, and Omega took this great bump. It just looked brutal. Okada taunted Omega with some light kicks, like he was Orange Cassidy, back in the ring. That just upset Omega, who fired himself up, ran the ropes, but he got cut off with a knee to the gut. Omega rallied. He hit a flip dive onto Okada on the floor. Callis ran away from Omega because he wasn't really going after him, but Omega was kind of like in the vicinity of the announce desk. He was actually leaning on it and kind of pointed over at Don. And so Callis went to go run away. And then once Omega got back in the ring, Callis returned to commentary. Omega hit Okada with a missile drop kick to the back. A little while later, Omega fought Okada on the ropes and superplexed him for a 2 count only. Omega fired up, but he ran into a drop kick from Okada, and both men were down. Later on, Omega brought Okada to the top rope for an avalanche dragon suplex. Planted Okada right on his face, because as his body was flying through midair, he twisted his body, tried to take a safer bump. Otherwise, he would have landed right on the back of his fucking neck. But it was still a big spot. And so after that, Omega fired off a V-trigger, one of many, many, many V-triggers here in this match. Then he teased the one-winged angel, which Okada countered into a spinning tombstone. Discus lariat turned Omega inside out for a near fall. Here comes Rocky Romero. He jumps up on the apron. Kota Ibushi quickly pulls him down and throws him into the barricade, so that takes care of him. I believe Trent Beretta on the other side of the ring got up on the apron and got knocked off by Omega, but the hard cam cut to it like right at the end, so it was kind of hard to see what happened there, but I believe it was Beretta. After assaulting Big Justice, after assaulting a 13-year-old kid earlier in the show, he comes out to stick his nose in his business that doesn't really have anything to do with him. Callis tried to run distraction, but he failed. Omega hit the one-winged angel. He had this match won. So what does Don Callis do in an act of desperation? Reaches into the ring, and he pulls Bryce Remsburg out to the floor, and then he stomps on him a few times. Ibushi goes to check on Bryce. Omega is waving for another referee to come out. So here comes Aubrey Edwards. running to the ring. Like, I can't even mimic the way that she ran down to the ring. Like, we just saw Charles Robinson, right, at Night of Champions during John Cena's match with CM Punk. There's a ref bump, and here comes Charles Robinson, and he's, just sprinting down to the ring like a normal person until Cena killed him. Aubrey Edwards comes out, and like, dude, you would think she was running in a marathon, like this, like really running down to the ring, and so she's like way over the top, and so she runs and she sprints into the ring in the most exaggerated way possible. Omega hits another V-trigger. Okada, though, escapes a one-winged angel attempt into a Rainmaker, only for 2. Both rose slowly, and they're trading forearms. Okada went back to work on the midsection. Omega hit a V-trigger. Okada nailed the drop kick, but Omega ducked a Rainmaker into an inside cradle. Callis, he tried to almost dive into the ring to break it up. It didn't matter because Okada kicked out anyway. Both men got back up at the same time. Okada hit a tilt-a-whirl slam before hitting another Rainmaker flush, and he picks up the win. And Kazuchika Okada beats Kenny Omega to become the first ever AEW Unified Champion. The Continental title, the International title have been unified. I don't think he needs to be carrying all 3 belts around when you've created this perfectly new one. I don't even know, frankly, if Tony Khan has fully fleshed out exactly how this is going to work yet, but I guess we'll find out on TV this week. We may see him with 3 championships on Dynamite. Did it rise to the level of their best from New Japan? The answer is no. No, it did not. For me, it's the weakest of all their matches, and their weakest match is still a very good match. If their best matches were 5, I mean, I know Meltzer just went crazy with his own little 5-star system, which is his system. Everybody has their own. I honestly, I don't remember the match where he broke his own scale. I think it's probably a Will Ospreay match, but it's just so ridiculous. Like 6 stars, 7 stars. Now it means nothing. I mean, it really, like 5 stars. If you're going to have a star rating system like that, you keep it at 5, and you just give 5 to what you consider to be the most elite matches, right? If I considered their previous matches to all be 5-star affairs, I would say this one was a 4. This one was in the 4 to 4.25 range, which is still an excellent match. It's just not at that same level where I'm going to feel compelled to maybe go back and watch it again, or I feel like it was just this all-time classic. They went out there and they had a great match. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the first match we got with Okada and Bryan Danielson, which I think was at Forbidden Door. And I remember watching that match and thinking, man, this was a good match, but I know these two are capable of having a better one. And they did. When they went to the Tokyo Dome, they had a better match. That's the superior of the two. And that's kind of how I felt about this. And given the way they did the finish, Callis getting involved, all these people getting involved, I'm not sure that we're not going to get this run back at least one more time. It may not be right away. I'm not prepared to sit here and tell you that, man, we just witnessed the last ever Kenny Omega Kazuchika Okada match. I don't know that that's necessarily true. But I enjoyed it. You know, as with most Okada matches, it starts very slow, very methodical. You often hear that as a criticism for Okada's matches. But that's because, like in New Japan, when he would have these big epic matches, he knew going into it, like this is going a minimum 35, 40 minutes. So he would pace himself, right? In the beginning of those matches, even the Omega matches, many of them, it's a very slow start. And I don't just mean the first 5 minutes. Like that could be the first 10, 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. And then you could just kind of feel when it gets kicked up to that second gear. And then in the final like 2 to 3 minutes, they have that closing sequence, last 90 seconds. Now it goes into like third gear. There's a very distinct pattern to some of those great Okada matches. And that's kind of how this one worked, where it started slow, but it built to a pretty good frenzy there, I would say, in the last, 3 or 4 minutes maybe. But this was a very good match between these two. My first thought coming out of it was, when do we get Okada and Takeshita? I just think back to a few weeks ago, backstage, we had that little face-to-face. You could tell that Takeshita was not either trusting of this man or just doesn't like him. The fact that, Callis brought him into the family. And it was a clear indication that at some point we are going to get Okada and Takeshita. Now that Okada is the champion, I picked Kenny to win this match, but I'm actually glad Okada won. Because now, as they hopefully build to the eventual match with him and Takeshita, Takeshita should be the one to take that championship away from him. Like, they could really make this a really big moment for him. One of their big young names on that roster who just always goes out there. Doesn't matter where, when, with who. You could count on Takeshita. Like, he's one of those guys where he's going to go out and have a really good match or a fucking great match. Like, you could set your watch to it. You put him in the ring in a major match with Okada, you have him beat Okada, one of the few to beat Okada since he came to AEW, because he's not undefeated, but he's lost maybe twice. Right? Bryan Danielson, and I think, was it Kyle Fletcher? It was somebody in the Continental Classic. It might have been Fletcher. And I think that's it. I think those are the only losses that he has to his name. Okada and Takeshita is where I hope they go. I don't know if that's the Forbidden Door match. I don't know if that's an all-out match. I don't know if we're going to get Okada Omega 6, this year. I just feel like we haven't seen it for the last time. And I like Okada winning the championship just because I think that bodes very well for Takeshita, when his time comes. And then the main event, the actual main event. Cue up the Titanic meme of the old lady. It's been 84 years, but we finally made it. Texas Death Match for the AEW World Championship. Jon Moxley defending that title against the winner of the Owen Hart Tournament, Hangman Adam Page, himself a former AEW World Champion. The rules are very simple in a match like this. No pinfalls, no submissions. Actually, I take that back. I'm totally wrong. No pinfalls, I meant no disqualifications. Submissions or knockout. That is the only way to win this match. See, this is what happens when it's 11:30 at night and I'm going on 3 hours of sleep. I get my stipulations mixed up. But that's the only way to win. I mentioned the segment from Collision on Thursday. If you didn't see it, go to the AEW YouTube channel. The whole thing is on there. It is worth, even now that the pay-per-view is over, I feel like it's worth, if you did not see it, but you've been following their story long enough, to go back and watch that segment. Because it was a very important segment in terms of kind of the development of this on-screen relationship, between these two characters that have been at each other's throats and have literally been in a blood feud. I mean, the things that these two guys did to each other is just, it's sick. And you see how the Hangman character has changed and has evolved a lot since then. And he brings up the fact that, what I did to you, and having regrets. Do you regret what you did? And then Swerve's response to that, and talking about him burning down the childhood home that he planned to raise his kids and his grandkids in, just like he was raised in. And then coming to the realization that, what? Maybe it was meant to be. Maybe it's a sign that you have to let go of the past and you have to move on. And then the symbolism with the chain, which came into play in the closing moments of this match. Because there was a chain in that room. And when Hangman left, I think he had the chain. And when he left, Swerve grabs the chain and he's holding it and he's staring at it. It was foreshadowing of what was going to happen here on this show. And I just love that. And so for the people, however many people there may still be, and there shouldn't be any, but for the people out there who still crow about there's no stories in AEW, they don't know how to tell stories. Where's the story? There's no story. These are people that just don't pay attention. Either that or they stick their fingers in their ears. They put their hands over their eyes and they just pretend they're not seeing and hearing what everybody else is seeing and hearing. You don't have to like all of those stories that they tell, but they do tell them if you just pay attention. And to me, this is one of the best that they have told in the history of the company. Now, as far as the entrances here, they brought back Hangman's original theme song for this, which I was very happy about. I don't hate Hangman's recent theme, and it's just like, it's very similar, but obviously it's got its own tweaks to it. But they went back to his original theme here, which I liked. So we get going, and again, it's Texas Death. It's Jon Moxley. It's Hangman, and the stuff that these guys have done in these other hardcore type matches that we've seen them in, the ultra violent type stuff. Like, it probably wasn't even 2 full minutes into this match, and Hangman pulls out a fork, okay? And he wasn't about to eat dinner. Pulls out a fork, and he gets a hold of Actually, Moxley double-legged him down, but he has Moxley in position now, and he starts jabbing away at his forehead, like legitimately stabbing away where blood begins to flow, okay? And he is just jabbing, like he's Abdullah the Butcher out there, and he's just stabbing him in the head. So then Moxley, since turnabout is fair play here, Moxley gets a piece of barbed wire around Hangman's head and starts digging the barbed wire shards into his forehead. And then Marina Shafir, who's on the outside, she comes over and starts biting Hangman's forehead. So now, of course, Hangman also comes up bleeding. Moxley is bleeding just like a sieve, and so now Hangman is also bleeding. Mind you, I don't even think at that point we're a full 4 or 5 minutes into this match, right? This gives you a pretty good indication of where this is headed, okay? If this is the opening 5 minutes of the match, what is the last 5 going to look like, right? So Moxley brings a steel chair wrapped in barbed wire into the ring, lays it flat, and he slams Hangman right on top of it. Then he kicked the chair back into Hangman's face. Shafir helped Moxley set up a table on the floor outside, right in front of where the announcers are. Even though there were already a couple of tables on the side opposite the hard cam, when the match started, yeah, like these TLC matches, they'll just lay ladders and shit around the ring. They already had 2 tables out there side by side wrapped in barbed wire. But they're setting another regular table up over here on this side. Moxley caught Hangman with a cutter, and he called out to Shafir to go grab something. Couldn't really pick up on what he was talking about. But she reaches underneath the ring and pulls out a bucket, which is filled with shards of broken glass. Like glass bottles. You could tell, like the top part of some broken bottles. So they put the bucket in the ring. He pours all the glass all over the mat, and he's stomping on it to try to really grind them down like into little tiny shards of glass that they'll probably be picking out of their bodies for the next week. And he picks up some of the glass in his hand, and he starts rubbing it across Hangman's face. And you can hear, like, you know, the people are reacting to this because, again, this is sick shit here. So it gets a rise out of the fans. So he starts rubbing it in his face. Hangman now, at this point, is bleeding more than Moxley is. And Moxley was bleeding pretty good. Then Moxley started literally dragging him across broken glass. I've heard expressions before about how I would walk through broken glass. Yeah, well, you have never been dragged through broken glass like Hangman was. And his back was all cut up. Moxley then delivers a pile driver right onto the pile of glass. And referee Paul Turner is there to lay the count on. Hangman has to respond here by the count of 10. Jack Perry. Yeah, where's Jack Perry at? I'm not complaining, but I completely forgot about that guy. He has been such a non-entity since losing the TNT title. I just almost forgot he was even with the company. He probably got a little tingle in his loins here watching this when they brought out the real glass. Hangman got back to his feet, so he was able to beat the count. Started swinging wildly, so Moxley gave him another pile driver. Marina Shafir now, she starts sliding. Oh. This was not a glorious match. This was a very violent match. A Gorilla 25-15. With the new $35 Cinema. Absolute Cinema. Super chat. Thank you, A Gorilla. Gonna get to your messages in a little bit. Get them on in. Marina Shafir starts sliding chairs, multiple chairs, into the ring. And Moxley sets two of the chairs up facing each other. And he takes Hangman to the ropes to try to powerbomb him. Okay, he's going to powerbomb him off the ropes through the seated portion, the actual seats, right, of these chairs. Hangman, though, fights back with headbutts, which only makes him bleed more. Hangman was setting up for a superplex. Moxley, though, pulled out a piece of barbed wire, and he starts to torture Hangman with it until Hangman climbs down. Hangman, meanwhile, unbeknownst to Moxley, because Hangman is standing there, he's blocking the chairs, he reverses the chairs. So now the chairs are back to back. And the back portion of the chairs, right, and the lip of the chairs, it's just sitting there like that. It's not a place where you would want to be slammed, okay? Moxley has no idea because he can't see this. And then Hangman power bombs Moxley off the middle rope onto what was supposed to be the pointed edges of the chair. And really, he ended up landing on one of the chairs, which was much safer than had he landed spine first, the way that the spot was intended. I mean, look, it was a brutal spot either way. It would have been far more brutal, though, if he would have actually landed on the top part of the chairs. Hangman wraps the barbed wire around his arm now. He delivers a pair of rolling elbows. And now here's Wheeler Yuta. Here he is. You knew he was going to show up, right? You knew the Death Riders were going to show up. So Wheeler Yuta shows up to attack, has no effect. And Hangman blasts him with a rolling elbow. Then he gave Moxley the Christopher Daniels Angel's Wings on a mat littered with broken glass. Paul Turner started his count. Hangman went out to the apron. He's setting up for a buckshot until Marina Shafir jumps on his back. He repositions her and delivers a Death Valley driver off the apron through the table down below that she and Moxley had set up a few minutes earlier. And she goes crashing through the table. Shafir is dead. Rest in peace. Back inside, Hangman gave Moxley a dead eye on the broken glass. Now Claudio is here, and Claudio hits the ring. He attacks Hangman. Yuta is back up. He's putting the boots to him now on the floor outside. Claudio pulls another table out from underneath the ring, and they set it up outside. But here's Will Ospreay. He runs out, and he's fighting off the Death Riders. Gabe Kidd is suddenly there. I don't know where the hell he came from, but there he is. Gabe Kidd is at ringside, and Gabe Kidd gives Ospreay a pile driver on the floor. Claudio wraps a chair around Ospreay's neck, very much like what he did with Samoa Joe at the beginning of the show after they lost to the Opps. And he Pillmanized the neck, right? He stomped on the chair, and he did the same thing here. Nobody stopped him. He backed up, he charged in, and he stomped it. He kills Ospreay. Rest in peace. Moxley's got Hangman now on the apron, and he's going to pile drive him. It looks like he's going to try to pile drive him off the apron through those barbed wire tables I mentioned before that are sitting there side by side. But Hangman counters out. He backdrops him into the ring. Now Moxley puts him in the choke. He's back out on the apron, and he's got the choke on him, and he only has it on him for a few seconds, but just enough to kind of wear him down. And then he sets him up for what is basically just a good old-fashioned vertical suplex. And Moxley suplexes him off the apron, and they both take a bump through both tables. So Moxley crashed through the first barbed wire table. Hangman crashed through the second one. And so they're just laying there now in this pile of debris. As Will Ospreay is now being strapped to a backboard, Paul Turner lays a count on both men. They both make it back to their feet by the count of 9. They both make it up just in time. The crowd is awfully quiet for this, by the way. Like, you would think this is the main event of the show, and it just felt like they should be louder for what we're seeing here than they were, and it was just very noticeable to me. And it would change. It would get better here in a few minutes, but like, it was just very noticeable how subdued and how quiet they were here during all of this stuff. But yeah, I also had to remind myself at this point in the show, we were over 5 hours into this show. And if you count 0 hour, it was closer to 7 hours. So you know what? If these people were burned out, I could understand it. So now they're both on their knees in the center of the ring, and both men are firing up. So now, of course, the crowd begins to rise. Moxley drops him with a lariat, picks him up for the Gotch-style pile driver, and floats over into the Bulldog choke. And it looks like Hangman is out. Get another count from Paul Turner after Moxley releases the hold. Makes it all the way to 9. Hangman barely makes it back up in time. Moxley follows up with a Death Rider onto the open chair. There's an open chair in the ring. So we get another 9 count from the referee. Hangman is back up. And I'm thinking, where are all the other baby faces? Death Riders are still out there. Will Ospreay has been killed off. I know Samoa Joe was hurt earlier in the show, but like, where's Hobbs? Where's Swerve? Where's Darby? Where's Danielson? Where's Sting? Where's somebody, right? I mean, what are they waiting for? Claudio hands Wheeler Yuta the plastic bag. And so he gets in the ring, hands it to Moxley. But wait, there's a video now that is playing on the big screen. And I'll tell you, if I didn't hear his voice, I don't know that I would have really recognized who it was. It was Darby Allin. He is on Mount Everest. He is, I think, at the summit possibly, or maybe not at the summit, but he's up there, right? He's on the mountain. Obviously, he doesn't have his face paint on. He's got sunglasses on, no face paint, so I didn't recognize him right away, but clearly it's Darby Allin because he's on a fucking mountain. And he says he promised Moxley that he would take everything from him. I don't think a lot of people in the crowd immediately knew who it was because, again, you would have expected a much bigger reaction the minute they showed him on screen. So I know I wasn't the only one where it took a few seconds like, oh, shit, that's Darby. So then this masked luchador slips into the ring. And it's not Darby Allin, but he's going like this. Gee, I wonder who that could be. Maybe it's Diego Sanchez under a mask. I don't know. But he slips into the ring. It is Bryan Danielson. He is doing the yes chant. I got a nice giggle out of that. If you believe what he said at StarCast, where he said that WWE, I don't know if they sent him a formal cease and desist, but I guess he made it clear that he was told they don't want him doing that anymore. So what does he do? He comes out here and fucking does it anyway. I love it. Good. He should do it anyway. Throwing his fucking fingers up in the air. Who says you can't throw your fingers up in the air? So he delivers a Busaiku knee to Wheeler Yuta. Yes kicks to Yuta. Yes kicks to Claudio. Then he dives out of the ring to wipe out Gabe Kidd, who's out there with all the other Death Riders after they all congregate outside. And now they cut to Darby Allin, who is rappelling from the ceiling. And again, this gets no reaction. This was a far cry from Sting back in the day, rappelling from the ceiling. It gets no reaction. I don't know when the fans in the building actually first noticed that Darby was falling. Like at first they showed us at home watching. Like you could see he's obviously being lowered. It's possible the fans in the arena didn't see that. Eventually he lowers down even more. Then they take notice and it gets more of a reaction. But it just came off very awkward. So Hangman, now he lands on the apron. I should point that out. Darby finally lands. He's on the apron. But there's a buckshot lariat delivered by Hangman to Jon Moxley. Darby climbs up to the top rope. He dives off with a coffin drop, wipes out all the Death Riders on the floor. Meanwhile, Hangman delivers a second buckshot lariat to Moxley. Darby and Danielson, they end up running the Death Riders off through the crowd. Hangman then gets Moxley in position for a Deadeye off the apron through a table, another one that is set up on the floor outside. A Deadeye through the table. Moxley is able to make it back up before the count of 10 because Marina Shafir has risen from the dead and she makes her way over and grabs Moxley and picks him up just in time to break the count. So then we see the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks have arrived after their loss earlier in the show. And Hangman eats a pair of double super kicks from Matt and Nick. Then he eats the EVP trigger. Moxley and Shafir, they slide a giant bed of nails that just so happened to be laying underneath the ring. Boy, they prepared for this match. This thing is big. Giant bed of nails. Wonder what else they got under there. They slide it into the ring. Moxley delivers a Seth Rollins type curb stomp to Hangman, which he didn't take it very well because it's a fucking bed of nails. So obviously he wanted to protect his face and his eyeballs, but it ended up not looking great. Then Moxley delivers a paradigm shift onto the bed of nails. Paul Turner begins to count. Hangman makes it back up to his feet. I shit you not, it had to be 9.99999. Like, I mean, barely made it back to his feet. Moxley then asks Marina Shafir, go get for the key around her neck. Go get the briefcase with the title inside. So she goes over by the timekeeper's area, and she hands him the key first, goes over to the timekeeper's area, grabs the briefcase, but then when she tries to bring it over, it's stuck. But she realizes she's stuck because when she reached in to grab it, somebody placed handcuffs on her wrist. And then we see that it's Prince Nana who has handcuffed her to where now, I don't know if she was handcuffed. I don't even know what she was handcuffed to, but I guess the guardrail maybe, but she can't move because she's been incapacitated now. So Moxley goes out to go help her, and Swerve Strickland shows up in the aisle, and he's got the chain. The chain from the segment that I mentioned before on Thursday on Collision, backstage in the locker room with him and Hangman Page. That chain that he was staring at when we last saw him in that segment. We are led to believe that it is the same chain. He wipes out the Bucks with the chain. Hangman is in the ring staring at him. He's staring at Hangman. What's going to happen here? And Swerve tosses the chain to Hangman in the ring. The pivotal moment of this match. Moxley back inside now. Hangman attacks him with the chain. Another buckshot lariat sends Moxley falling backwards onto the bed of nails. He picks him up. He wraps the chain around Moxley's neck. He tosses him over the top rope. He is now hanging this man. That chain is wrapped firmly around Moxley's neck. He can't breathe. He's flailing around. He's starting to panic. The referee is asking, do you want to give up? And he begins to tap on his own shoulder. And the place comes unglued because Jon Moxley has just submitted in this Texas death match, and that means that we have a brand new, for the second time, AEW World Champion. His name is Hangman Adam Page, who unlocks the briefcase after the match. Because, we've all been wondering, is the belt actually in the briefcase? The briefcase looks kind of small. The AEW World title is not a small belt. He unlocks the briefcase, and there it is. It's all folded up inside. The AEW World Championship, he pulls it out. I pointed out earlier, the Bryan Danielson side plates are still there. It's the same title like in a time capsule. When he won that title in October, it went in the briefcase, and they wanted to make sure that when he pulled it out, it looked the same way as it did back in October. So either they never took the plates off or they put the plates back on, but that was a nice little touch. And Hangman, tears in his eyes, celebrates this big championship win. We didn't get the flood of baby faces coming out. I thought that would have been a nice touch. I know some of them were taken out. Ospreay was taken out. Joe was taken out. I don't think Swerve was about to get in the ring and celebrate with Hangman, but there are a lot of people that have been fucked over and abused and beaten up by the Death Riders who have held that title and this company hostage now for 9 months. I thought maybe that we would get that kind of celebration at the end, like the locker room pours, like when Luger beat Hogan on Nitro that time, or Sting beat Hogan at Starrcade. We didn't get anything like that. It was just Hangman, on his own, just enjoying the moment, soaking it all in, and, tears of joy, and holding up the championship that we legitimately have not seen on this show in 9 months. And it's too bad because, honestly, if you ask me, what do I think is the best looking world title belt in wrestling right now, it's the AEW World title. Yeah, I got to give him credit. It's a beautiful belt. It's too bad it's been locked away in a briefcase for the last 9 months. Now maybe they'll sell more replicas now that they can show the belt off on TV. But our long national nightmare is finally over. I don't know that this means the Death Riders are just going to disband now. I think the Death Riders will live on for a little bit longer. I don't think they're just going to completely, dissolve. But as far as the match itself, Texas Death. You know, I mean, you knew coming into this match, this was going to be bloody. This was going to be a fucking fight between these two guys. They were going to do some sick shit. It's Jon Moxley. Why would you expect any different? So that didn't really bother me. It was as advertised. We got the run-ins that we thought we were going to get. The Darby one just felt a little underwhelming the way they did it. The Bryan Danielson thing was very fleeting, but that's fine. I mean, that he showed up. It made sense that he would show up. I don't know that he's coming back anytime soon. He's actually, people should understand that his cameo here does not mean that he is getting back in the ring anytime soon, as far as we know, because I think the idea was that he was still giving his neck time to heal up before he might possibly have surgery. I don't know where things stand on that, but it was good to see him out there. I mean, again, Wheeler Yuta's been using his move for months, so it made sense for him to come out and go after him. So I feel like we got those cameos for the most part that we were expecting here. The Swerve one was the most important, more than Darby. The Swerve one was the most important of them all. I liked the way that they did that. And it was just a satisfying feeling where you get that payoff and a story that I personally just never found any real great pleasure in watching. I never really found it entertaining. I was ready for it to be over months ago, and they prolonged it and they dragged it out and they dragged it out. And yes, we got a great moment here, just like we did with Cody at WrestleMania last year. At the same time, that doesn't mean that, he shouldn't have won the belt at 39. So, but we got a great moment here, and that's all that matters. The belt is off Moxley. We look ahead now. Are we looking at Swerve and Hangman and again in these next few months for the championship? Would they go back to that this quickly? Where do things stand with MJF? He's got that contract now, lording over Hangman, and there's a lot of unresolved issues between Hangman and MJF. Do they have him defending in the meantime against some other random challengers? Maybe members of the Callis family, or I don't even, someone maybe that we're not even thinking of right now as like a first defense. How often will he be defending the championship? Is he going to be one of these, fighting champions who defends almost weekly on TV? I don't know. But the Hangman story arc, as far as that character, has been a lot of fun to follow. It has been the best in the history of AEW. When I think of who that one person is, if you have to pick one person to really associate with the company, and it's like their story is sort of the dominant story, who does the story of AEW revolve around over the last 5 or 6 years? It's not Kenny Omega. It's not MJF. It's Hangman Page. It's not Bryan Danielson. It's not CM Punk. It's Hangman Page. And so I've enjoyed, the stuff that they've been doing with him. It was the right move to make. They gave you the feel-good ending, send the fans home happy, end this Death Riders bullshit with the championship, and let's turn the page and let's start a whole new batch of stories now, starting on Wednesday, as we move into not only Forbidden Door, but we move into All Out in September. And we'll see on Wednesday, what direction they take as far as Hangman in the short term, what they're going to be doing with him. But this was an excellent show. There was a lot of really good stuff on this show. The stuff that I didn't really enjoy so much, it wasn't terrible. There was some stuff that I really wasn't fond of. I told you what that was. But the key shit delivered. The main event delivered the outcome that it needed to deliver. And it was very entertaining. Omega and Okada, it may not have been their best, but it was very good. Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné, best women's match that I've seen in AEW history, as far as I'm concerned. The men's gauntlet, the women's gauntlet, they both had their moments. I enjoyed the men's more than the women's, but neither one was, out of this world or anything like that. But we had some other matches on this card. Well, of course, the tag team match, Bucks against Ospreay and Swerve. That was also excellent. So there was definitely more good than bad here on this show. Was it very long? Yes, it was. But they treat this like it's their WrestleMania. And right now, All In is one night. So they're doing what WWE was doing only a few years ago. And I don't think, again, it needs to be that long. But I can understand them having a longer show on what is the biggest night of the year for them. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Does it get a thumbs up from you? Let's find out, because we got the poll results right here. The answer is yes. 77% thumbs up. That's with 2,000 votes plus. In so far, 77% thumbs up, 23% thumbs down for All In Texas 2025. You can go vote at Solomonster. This creepy Jeff Hardy there appears on my screen. Andre says, should All In be 2 nights? You know what? If they insist on doing 6 and 7 hour shows, the answer is yes. It probably should be 2 nights. That is a very long show. That's longer than most of those Tokyo Dome shows, and those are also very long. Hey, Platinum Pagoda, what's going on, man? Welcome.
Off is a direction you can fuck.
That's right. That's where the Death Riders can go. That's the direction that they can fuck. See what you guys thought of this show here on what is a very busy wrestling weekend. I still have another show that I have to watch before I go to bed tonight. I may never sleep. I may never sleep again.
I am the learning.
I may become the learning tree.
Fuck that tree.
Tuxedo T Servo, thank you for the 12. Actually, you know what? I could probably get through Saturday night's main.
Mentos, the fresh maker.
And Havili interrupting me with the $30 bomb there.
Watch me. Say hello to Liver Morgan. You know you want me, baby.
I was going to say, I could probably get through Saturday night's main event in about 15 minutes if I fast forward through all the fucking commercials. Shouldn't take me that long. All right, let's take a look at your super chats here. Make sure I get everybody we need to get. And I do see that we hit the secondary goal. We hit the first goal, too. Big time. We're almost at 700 likes. But you're getting a double dose of Be the Booker here just as soon as I get through these messages. So thank you for that. Hey, RCB 112 says, longtime listener, first time super chat, just wanted to extend a hearty hello from myself and my cat, King Kong Bundy. I love that name. It's great. I love how he used the full name too. He didn't call the cat King Kong or Kong, like King Kong Bundy. That's the name. That's like me, calling my cat the Shockmaster. I love it. The Real CS, do you think Tony Khan will bring All In to Arena Mexico one year? How likely do you think this is? I don't think that's very likely at all. I think they're going to want to keep All In to bigger venues. I think they'll definitely go back to Arena Mexico for Grand Slam, but not for All In. Ace of Mazda. Definitely not the end game of AEW. That match was no boring Disney cape shit. I don't know if he meant so boring or if he meant... I don't know if he's actually complimenting the match or burying the match. That's how important a single word can be in a super chat. It changes the entire definition of the chat. Jerome Eugenio, thank you for the 2. Says thumbs up. Duff's Vids, the 1999. Didn't watch the pay-per-view, but here for Solo's review. Let's go Solo. Man, you missed an opportunity there. I love you, Solo. Thank you, Duffs. Crypto and Poker says, Solo, who you got? Lois Lane or Mary Jane? Lois Lane. I'll go Lois Lane. Ray Wrighton, thank God Mercedes lost. No fan of Mercedes, huh? I know who you're pulling for in that tag team title match at Evolution tomorrow. We have got Leopoldo. Hey, thank you, Leopoldo. Appreciate it. We got I Love Dogs 9522. I think Seth got legit hurt. Did he? I certainly hope not. At Naked Dried Chicken Without Flavor. AEW did the right thing. Swerve Strickland did the right thing. Hangman Page redemption arc has been completed. May the sun shine upon him now. Venom Kitetsu says, I don't think my cat believes in Joe Hendry. In fact, I don't even think he knows the awe that is Joe Hendry at all. How am I supposed to live with someone like this? Happy weekend, my dude. Cheers. Well, you're just gonna have to, bring your cat to the shelter and just, I'm sorry. It's just if he doesn't believe in Joe Hendry, then you can't keep him. It's the way it goes. Big Fundamental. Every wrestler should take notes and be like the Big Fundamentals, Tim Duncan. I saw, I watched the entire interview, but I know he sat down for a rare interview, and with the long hair, he looks completely unrecognizable to me. Matthew. Just noticed that what Swerve did for Hangman parallels what Matt Jackson did at Full Gear 2021. Fantastic main event and a great show. Best wishes to Cole. Yes, best wishes to Adam Cole. Just a tough situation all around there. Mr. Rod, the world is whole again now that Hangman is champion again. God answered our prayers and congrats to him. Cowboy shit. I love it. Southpaw says, Solo, cool, I got to meet you last night at HOG. I was the dude in the camo shirt. I listen on Apple Pods, so I'm a first-time dono. Love the show. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Southpaw. I got to meet a lot of really cool people last night, including him at the show, who came up to me and said they came to the show because they heard me talking about it on the podcast and on TNT, and I said, just let the promoter know. I don't get no kickback, but it's good to let them know, That's awesome, though, man. I appreciate all the hospitality that you showed, not just me, but House of Glory last night. It was a lot of fun. I just wish I had more time in town, but this has been a very crazy weekend. Prince Vegeta says, Drew losing to Orton is one thing, but a possible reality where he takes a clean loss to Jelly Roll is something I cannot comprehend. If that happens, I give up on him ever being world champion again. Yeah, that cannot happen. That cannot be allowed to happen. The Average Grunt, All In, the biggest show of the year with the largest non-WWE pay-per-view crowd in U.S. history, knocked it out of the park. It was an excellent show. Juster Ben's All In was a great birthday treat. Happy birthday. Nash DTV. It was so cool to meet you at the HOG show last night. Just as cool in real life as you are on the show. Thank you, man. I was super nervous, starstruck even, happy you made it home safe. Yeah, I tell people don't be shy. I mean, you see me, I was doing a lot of different things yesterday, so it was a little rough there heading into the show because we had some changes at the last minute. Some people had some travel issues, matches got changed. And I was pulling a Joey Styles last night. I did commentary all by myself the entire show. And there were a lot of local talents on the show. Some that I was not familiar with. Again, some who got swapped in last minute. And so you can imagine how stressful that is. You certainly don't want to be on the air and not know who's about to walk out. That wouldn't be good. But it all worked out. I think it worked out pretty well. The Randy Bobandy with the 1999. Didn't watch the show, went to an Orioles game instead. Lost, I know, shocker. But I bought an item in honor of Solo. A walked ball for Jackson Holiday, pitched by the Mets. Brian Stanek. That's very cool. I mean, not going to the Orioles game, but the last part. Larcity with the 10. Happy 10-year anniversary to your buy or sell segment on the Sound Off. Buy or sell on the better comeback in 2002. Hulk Hogan or Shawn Michaels. Thank you. Shawn Michaels. Especially when you look at the totality of the return, the longevity of the return. I mean, it's Shawn Michaels hands down. It's not even close. Nash DTV. Also, All In was a blast. I went to wrestling shows since 2000, and this had to be the most fun that I've ever had at a wrestling show. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, again, I probably should have stayed and gone to the show. But once, WWE added Evolution, and then I realized, what was going on just with all the shows, and I got to do a podcast tomorrow, I'm like, it's just going to be so much easier for me if I just come back home. I really should not have gotten that early of a flight, though. That was definitely a mistake. I'm definitely feeling it now. Havili with the 65. What's up, Solomonster? Shout out from Brisbane, Australia. How are you doing today? It is Sunday, July 13th. Thoughts on Charlotte's interview with The Undertaker and Michelle McCool. I have not watched it. I didn't even know that she did one. Favorite ice cream? Favorite ice cream? Chocolate chip. I keep it basic. With Mercedes losing to Toni, does that mean that she will break Jade's record? I mean, she's close enough. If I had to venture a guess, my guess would be yes. I mean, again, I don't really see the need for her to break the record, but I think it happens in October. I could see her breaking the record, yes. You know what would be even better? If she was like, and I don't know if the calendar will fall just perfectly like this, but like, they could time it where she's like 1 day away from breaking the record, and then they have somebody beat her for the TBS title. And really like try to establish someone by virtue of that win. And not only do they win the championship, but they prevent her from setting the record by like a day. I don't know if they would do that though. Jonathan Black, pay-per-view of the year, a top 5 AEW pay-per-view and AEW's best since Revolution 2024. Yeah, that was Sting's retirement. That was a great show. Yeah, I was warned about flying out of DFW, but I think my flight was just so early. I didn't have any issues. I was warned by so many people, there's always delays and there's issues. I mean, not when you're flying out at 6 o'clock in the morning, apparently there isn't. Or 7 o'clock, whatever it was. Randy's like, why am I the Randy Bobandy instead of my normal name? Because YouTube fucked up the names again. See, everybody has an @ before their name. It goes back and forth. I don't know what the hell's going on with YouTube, man. They're just screwing everything up. Larcity with the $40 sicko super chat. Here's to money that I could have spent on a good bottle of liquor or a quickie. All jokes aside, this show was fine, just way too long. However, always happy to help support you and your quality work. Thank you, Larcity. Thank you for helping break in, being one of the first, not the first, but one of the first to break in the new $40 super chat. Appreciate that. Leopoldo, just catching up, playing it twice as fast while taking my mom to the store. I thought I heard these two men did not, in fact, suck his dick. I don't know what the context was, and I have not, in fact, rewound it. You're better off not rewinding it and just moving on. Unregistered Hypercam. Now that the Mox reign is over, why does it take 9 months for main event babyfaces to equal the heels numbers game in a no DQ match? It's a good question. I think they try to build drama. That's why. They want to give it all away in the first week. But it does make the babyfaces look dumb sometimes, doesn't it? Not quite as dumb as their referees, but it does make them look kind of dumb. Frack 18, great show. The final 3 matches and the tag match delivered. Edge and Christian are my favorite tag team of all time. The millennial in me is happy. Well, you will be soon. You'll be pretty happy, I think, come All Out. A Gorilla. Just when I thought I was out, AEW pulls me back in. No one will dispute the quality of their pay-per-views. Just too damn long, that's all. Prince Vegeta says this should hopefully be Jon Moxley's last world title reign in any promotion. I would take Oldberg as world champion any day over Moxley. Well, let's not get carried away now. Swerve let Ospreay get crippled. Just saying. He did. It's smart, though. You know, he's clearing out some competition for that world title. See, the guy's always thinking. Bang LA Child 14. What a name. Thank you for renewing your membership. We also have a $20 super chat from Bang. Says Death Riders lost. Tony Storm retained. Bryan Danielson returned. AEW World title back on TV, and Goldberg's career is over. So many blessings. Oh, I can't wait to go back and watch that. At least it'll be short. Won't take me very long to get through that tonight. But I got a podcast to do tomorrow, so I have to watch it. Were the commercials as bad as they were last time? Because it just felt like last time a lot more people were complaining about the commercials on that show. Leopoldo, PSA, why do you get edit try again message on Super Chats? Edit try again message on Super Chats. No cussing. So Solo can say... Is this like an error message or something? I have no idea. I have no idea what any of that means. Leopoldo, thank you. Tuxedo T Servo, Toni wins, Hangman wins, the Bucks lose. 8 out of 5 stars. Havili. With one more show left, how do you rank these shows so far this weekend? HOG, Texas, ROH Supercard of Honor, Great American Bash, All In. It's impossible for me to answer. I did not see most of these shows. I was doing a show during Supercard of Honor, so I haven't watched it. I really don't have any interest in watching the Great American Bash. And All In, I mean, clearly All In was the bigger show. If Seth possibly injured, would we get Punk versus Breaker, Roman? Oh, I don't even know what's happened yet. I have to go back and watch. But if what I'm seeing here is correct and he is hurt, they're going to have to change some things up very clearly, because Roman Reigns is going to be back in time for a SummerSlam match, supposedly. And there's a very good possibility that match was going to involve Seth Rollins, so they better hope he's not hurt. Bender McSimpson, the Death Rider story stunk, but that shouldn't take away from how good Moxley is and how hard he has worked for the company. Do you think AEW will hold more afternoon pay-per-views? I can get used to this. You know what? I think I would prefer it too. I don't see that becoming a regular thing. I think that it was a combination of different things. Obviously, they knew they were up against Saturday night's main event, and they wanted to be as far away from that as possible. Also, typically these all-in shows take place in the afternoon because of the time zone difference in the UK, and so I wonder if part of it was just they wanted to sort of maintain that afternoon slot. Very possible, you know, if they're back to Wembley next year, you're going to get another show probably at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I like the afternoon shows just because the AEW shows are so long. Like, they are obscenely long. That as a content creator, when I then have to go live after, it's just a huge pain in the ass. And also just audience-wise, I think it works better if it's a little bit earlier. So for me personally, I love it. You know, kind of fucks up dinner and all that, but if you gave me the choice, I would probably go with the afternoon pay-per-views. Food Hive just got home from All In Texas. I loved everything. That's awesome. Sorry I missed you, Food Hive. But looking at the ticket prices, again, it was very affordable. I was telling people, you know, even leading up to the show, like, if you are burned out by WWE ticket prices, and so that's why maybe you would want to go to the shows, but you feel like you can't bring your kids, it's too expensive. I mean, you don't have to be the biggest AEW fan in the world, but if you just want to go see some live wrestling, obviously hit up your local independent promotions, but beyond that, AEW really should lean into that more. The fact that if you want to be able to go see, you know, the best wrestle and not break the bank, AEW may be for you. You know, there's a whole marketing campaign in there somewhere. Because the WWE prices really have gotten very obscene. And if you are looking for more actual in-ring wrestling when you go to these shows, AEW is going to be your better bet than WWE. Havili says, by the way, number 20, Christian versus Randy. Oh, he's talking about the SummerSlam best matches countdown that they're doing for SummerSlam. Number 20, Christian versus Randy, and number 19, Brock Lesnar against The Undertaker. After this weekend, who is the most likely to join the main roster, Ricky Saints or Jordan Grace? Thank you, Solomonster. I guess it depends who went over on the NXT show. I heard, I didn't hear the outcome, but I heard Ricky Saints and Ethan Page had a really good match. I'm assuming Ethan won. Who do I think is going to hit the main roster first? Well, I mean, I guess a lot of it just depends on whether or not Jordan Grace wins the NXT Women's Championship tomorrow. If she does, I'll say Ricky. Hey, Valentino, welcome to the channel, brother. Food Hive says, everyone was loud both times for Darby in the arena. I don't know how it came across quiet on TV. Dude, like, I'm telling you, go watch the clip when he first starts rappelling from the ceiling. Like, it was quiet. Once he rappelled a little further down, and probably more people saw him, then it got more of a reaction. Havili, I forgot number 21. Becky versus Bianca. You're not talking about that 20, that was it even 26 seconds or 6 seconds? I forgot. You're not talking about that match, are you? I mean, they had a great WrestleMania match, but their SummerSlam match sucked. Oh, wait a minute, though. No, they had another one, didn't they? They had one in, wasn't it that first SummerSlam? Okay, that's got to be the match that you're talking about. That first SummerSlam after the Vince stuff hit in the Wall Street Journal, was that 2022? Yeah, that was a very good match. Leopoldo, can Triple H send cease and desist to fans for the what chance? I wish. I wish. I wish there was a way to do that. Become C. Booker. Solo, I'm dealing with an abusive, manipulative partner who I just contacted the authorities about. Waiting to make a police report. I am stressed. I'm sorry to hear about that. Just make sure you stay safe. Smart though that you're going to file a report. That's something that you have to do. So I don't know the circumstances and all that, but do me a favor. Please stay safe. The Juliet, Bianca will be a guest referee for Naomi and Jade. Ah, the plot thickens. Was that announced, or are you just predicting that? Because I could totally see that. BCom C. Booker. Oh, here we go. Some more context here. I'm currently safe. He has left. He's trying to get money from me that I don't owe him. I gave him $35 because he was making threats. Police have been contacted. For $35, this has turned into a whole situation. Yeah, I think you're better off without this person. George Seckman, what's going on, George? What did the boy Volcano say to the girl Volcano? I lava you.
You suck.
George, you have officially been recognized. That's probably the first time I've used that sound effect for you. Welcome to the club. Link Master X. Who wins in a shoot? Road Warriors or APA? Boy, you know, it's hard to vote against Ron Simmons. Hawk, though, was a fucking maniac. You know, I wouldn't want to be in a fight with either one of them. But if you force me to choose, I'll go with the Road Warriors. I mean, Bradshaw got, you know, beat up by Steve Blackman. He got punched in the face by Joey Styles. I'll go with the Road Warriors. Leopoldo says, you get an error message whenever you cuss in a super chat. That's right. Yep. That's how it is. Linkmaster, LA Knight, Pin Seth. Thank you. Thank you for the spoiler. B Punk, Moxley tapping had me saying, "Oh, you got me, brother."
Oh, you got me, brother.
Oh. Living meme. You know, we had we had I think 5 gifted super chats earlier, and I did not jot down who it was. I will see who it was though when I'm done here, but I don't have the name in front of me. But thank you. That was right when I started tonight and went live. Thank you for those 5 gifted super chats. Power Spying Games. Thank you. Havili. The one in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, so that was definitely the Bianca Becky match from 2022. Mariah May pinned the NXT Women's Champion, and tag team match with Orton and yes, I know about that. Yes, Bianca is special guest referee. Oh, so that's official. Why? I don't have to watch any of this stuff now. Power Spying Games. I only got to watch most of All In off to work. Well, make sure you check out the rest of it because it was an excellent show. I think you will enjoy it on the whole. Living Meme, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, brother. The D Locker says JBL fake tough, just like Bob Holly. I read that completely wrong. I thought that said Buddy Holly. I'm like, what do you have against Buddy Holly? I didn't know Buddy Holly was fake tough. Bianca being referee worked so well last time. Oh yeah. Yeah. Let's run that back again because she did such a sterling job the first time. There was no controversy or anything. All right, you got 2 rounds coming your way. It is time. Let's be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Here we go. You guys hit the goals tonight. It is time to be the booker. Because we don't have enough wrestling shows this weekend, so I feel like I have to book my own. I have to book 2 of my own. And that's what we're going to do right now, because that's why you're here. And we begin. They weren't a team for very long, but this is a hell of a pairing right here. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. Former tag team champions. Taking on Jurassic Express, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus. Also former tag team champions. I gave it the bell because I think it would be a very good match. See Jack Perry eat a stunner. Women's be the booker. We have the former Intercontinental Champion Lyra Valkyria spreading her wings in that photo. Lyra will take on Lana. Lyra and Lana. Lana and Lyra. Moving on. Less said about that match, the better. Our main event. Where, oh, where will it land? It's all random. It is more random than the Casino Gauntlet. We begin with The Rock. This is The Rock right here from the early SmackDown era. This is The Rock that I remember from the Attitude era. And it will be The Rock, not the final boss, but The Rock against the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Not quite a clean sweep. The women's match ruined it, but we got 2 out of 3 on that first round. Do I have Spider Lady and be the... No, I have not added Tekla. I have to update that. But you got round 2, guys. You know what we do when we do a second round? We do some stipulations. That's what we do. Hold on a second here. Let me just check something real quick here. All right. So here we go. Let's pick a stipulation and then we'll attach it to women's match or tag team. We'll do tag team match. Tag team dog collar match. So I guess in a tag team dog collar match, both members, well, I mean, how would that work? It's not really a tornado well, I guess it would have to be a tornado tag team match where both partners are connected to the opposing team members. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to have you wouldn't be able to have 2 people connected via dog collar with one on one apron and one on the other. So that's how this would work. Tag team dog collar match with these 2 men right here. The Real Americans, Claudio and Jack Swagger. That's not me. Claudio and Jack Swagger, or Cesaro and Jack Swagger. Against Red Dragon, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? We need a stipulation for our women's match. I'm very disappointed that we're not getting a clean sweep tonight. We have a strap match. A good old-fashioned strap match. Each woman will be attached by a leather strap. They will get to whip each other with the strap. Choose 4 women and book a tag team match. Well, the strap match has been washed away. We are no longer doing a strap match. We are booking a women's tag team match. So we're going to be forming makeshift teams here. This should be interesting. Let's form the first team. In all honesty, it's better off without the strap match stipulation. Meiko Satomura, the legendary Meiko Satomura, who retired earlier this year, by the way, after a 30-year career. Meiko Satomura and Sol Ruka, who's moving on up in WWE. Saw her on SmackDown the other night. Sol Ruka and Meiko Satomura. It's an interesting team. Tegan Nox is on the opposing side, and teaming with Tegan will be Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus and Tegan Nox against Sol Ruka and Meiko Satomura. Man. It's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff right there. And it all boils down to this one last match. And it will be, oh boy, a Tony Khan dream match. The toys are coming out. We're booking a dream match. We had a bunch of them tonight. He got to book a whole bunch of dream matches. Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné, Kenny Omega, and Kazuchika Okada. We get one more Tony Khan dream match tonight. Find out what it's going to be. Tony, what's it going to be? Adam Cole suspended for excessive spray tanner. Oh, man, of all nights to land on this, as if this guy hasn't been through enough. Now he's been suspended. That is a lot of spray tanner, though. I mean, he looks like an Oompa Loompa here. I mean, this guy just can't catch a break. Well, let's move on here. Tony Khan dream match. I thought we were landing on that. We have Al Snow. This is already a lost cause. I mean, there's no such dream match that exists. Al Snow with head. I mean, how is this going to be our dream match main event? Al Snow against Hangman Adam Page. Tony Khan has booked his brand new AEW World Champion in a dream match against Al Snow. Man, the possibilities if it was Hangman against almost anyone else. Well, I have no control over it. I mean, Tony Khan is the one who booked that. Don't blame me. He's the one who booked that dream match. Let's take a look at these final super chats here. Linkmaster X Base Beerus here. See, again, the names are all screwed up. Linkmaster is... I thought Linkmaster was somebody new. You buzzed Hangman on the All In post show. I had no choice. You're going to look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me that you believe Hangman against Al Snow with head is a dream main event? I had no choice. Don't judge me. Don't guilt trip me. And BCom C, I assume that's BCom C clearly. It says, I'm going to send the $25 and document it and still file a police report with the authorities for my own safety. Yeah, I mean, again, that's the smart thing to do. You're doing the right thing. But I hope it all works out. Nobody needs that kind of stress. Not you or anybody else. And Duff's Vids with a $4.99. One bad joke for tonight. What sound does a witch's vehicle make? Broom, broom. That's where I put that joke. Broom, broom, he says. Anyway, you talk about witches. I'm going to talk about Evolution. How's that for a segue? WWE Evolution is coming up tomorrow night with a main event of Rhea Ripley against Io Sky for the Women's World Championship. Trish Stratus is wrestling for the WWE Women's Championship against Tiffany Stratton. I will be live after that show with the full review. We're going to talk about Evolution here on this very channel. And so I hope you guys will join me for the review. You are just destroying my thumbnail here. Look at this. All these messages popping up all at once. All my hard work. Anyway, I hope you will join me for that show. Because we got 2 podcasts coming your way tomorrow, including episode 920 of the show. I will talk about Saturday night's main event once I've had a chance to watch it. Apparently there was some news coming out of it. And we'll talk more about the fallout from All In tonight. Take some questions. So keep your eyes peeled for that sometime, probably mid-afternoon tomorrow. Randy Bobandy, the $9.99. Just wanted to say, if you're ever in Baltimore and wanted to watch some baseball, have some wooings, maybe. Watch some baseball for cheap, I got you. Would love to treat you to the best barbecue in MLB, Boog's Barbecue. Yeah, I was just in Texas. I think there are people in Texas that would disagree with you on the whole best barbecue thing, but I'm intrigued now. I've never heard of Boog's Barbecue before. What makes it so special? It says, yes, it is BCom C clearly. Love you guys. Yeah, I figured that's what I got from the name. I figured it was you, brother. And Havili coming in with a $13 super chat. A second here. Havili's been busy tonight.
Wing!
Public Enemy, PG-13 or Too Cool? Public Enemy, PG-13 or Too Cool? Public Enemy. If and when Too Cool go in the WWE Hall of Fame, do you see them going in as a duo or a trio with Rikishi? I don't see them going into the Hall of Fame. Worst bump of Rikishi, steel cage against Val Venus or Hell in a Cell match? What do you mean by worst bump? I mean, does that mean like the bump that looked the worst or worst bump for him to take? I would imagine that it was the Hell in a Cell one, but the one that I think doesn't get talked about enough is that splash off the top of the cage that he gave to Val Venus at Fully Loaded in 2000. I mean, that's a highlight reel bump. I was sweating bullets just watching him. Like, he climbs to the top of this just traditional mesh steel cage, and they have the beams in each corner once you climb up there that you can hold on to. First of all, that's a big guy to be climbing all the way up there to begin with. but he inches his way, like inch by inch by inch, to the very like dead center, and there's nothing to hold on to. And this is a legit 330, 350 pound man up there. Like, one wrong move and it's curtains, you know, possibly for more than just him, depending on who's down below. It was scary, you know, but he made it, and then he does that big jump off, and man, Val had to have a lot of trust in him that night. That's a big guy to be coming down from that height. Yeah, you were sweating. Imagine how Val was feeling. Yeah, I can imagine. Again, it just doesn't get talked about enough, because the finish of that match was just total dog shit. I mean, the match should have been over there. And then I think Taz, God, what was the finish of that match? I think Taz slammed the cage door on Rikishi's head, I think. It was so lame. Anyway, thank you guys for spending your Saturday night with me here. I appreciate it. This was an excellent pay-per-view. I enjoyed it. Let's see what this new year basically now for AEW will present to us coming up on Wednesday. Of course, I'll be live then as well for the Dynamite post show, but live back here on this channel for Evolution coming up on Sunday night. And I hope you will be here with me as well. Thank you for all the love this weekend. If I met you in Texas, you guys are awesome. Thank you for the love down there. Love my Texas peeps. And I will see you back here in less than 24 hours. Got a sound off in Evolution. I'll see you guys there. Take care. Leopoldo. What's going on, Leopoldo? I see a lot of Solomonster heads on that super chat. Look at my head. Leopoldo, you're awesome. Thank you, brother.